Hey, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Great to see another full house here. I'd like to call the regular council meeting for Monday, October 23rd to order. Firstly, I'd like to respectfully acknowledge the city of Colwood lies within the traditional territories of the Lekwungen speaking peoples, represented by the Kosepsum and Songhees nations. May I have a mover and seconder to receive the near-term agenda and today's agenda of the regular council meeting be adopted as presented? Okay, Grove and Olson. Discussion?
So we recently approved terms of reference for the infrastructure committee, and it does not appear on the short-term agenda. So I just wanted to draw that to everyone's attention that that needs to be added in.
Okay, thank you very much. Duly noted. Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, just a mayor's message. I just have two messages. On Saturday, October 14th, all members of council were invited to participate in a forum of all councils hosted by the CRD and the Chief Ron Sam of at the Songhees Wellness Center. Firstly, I would like to thank the members of Colwood Council for attending. In fact, we were one of the only two municipalities that were in full attendance. We gathered with many of the First Nations peoples in our region to hear about issues that impact them directly. The messages were direct and strong, but essential to our collective understanding of the lived experience of the First Nations people in the region. On behalf of Colwood Council, I would like to express my thanks to the CRD and the Songhees Nations for being hosts of this event. I believe it is an important early step in the discussions that will strengthen our government-to-government relationship. The second item I have is a public service announcement. Darkness falls across the land. The midnight hour is close at hand. Just kidding. The Colwood Volunteer Firefighting Association is hosting the annual Halloween bonfire on October 31st. It's from 6 to 8 o'clock at the Colwood Fire Hall. Bring on all the little ghosts and goblins to enjoy hot dogs, juice boxes, and treats, and have fun in the firelight on Halloween night. Okay, adoption of and receipt of minutes. May I have a mover and seconder that the recommendation under the adoption, receipt of minutes. Okay, Olson and Jensen. Any discussion? Any errors or omissions? Call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes. Public participation. We had one written submission that is in the agenda, and we have two submissions that were received after cutoff and will be attached to tomorrow's agenda. Members of the public will now be given the opportunity to present concerns or ask questions. You'll be given 2 minutes, at which time you'll hear a bell at your time. Alternately, you can wait for the agenda item to be brought up and you can speak at that time. Is there anyone that wants to wait? Okay, that makes it easy for me to do the meeting. So we'll just, we'll open it up for public participation. No, you could get up and speak right now, or you could actually wait for the item on the agenda. Then you can speak to it at that time. So you have a choice. We give you a choice now. So anyone want to wait? You want to wait. Okay. And which item is that, sir? Okay. I'll just make note of that. At this time, I'll welcome anyone else. Sir? Okay. So there's two of you. Okay. Three. Anyone else at this time that doesn't want to speak to a specific item or just wants to speak at public participation, I welcome you to the podium. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. Judith Collington, Acemink Road, tonight with my scenic hat on. So I wanted to speak to item 7.1 and start by saying congratulations, Councillor Ward, and the rest of you for considering a sign bylaw. It's certainly a conversation that we had with actually several members of council immediately following the last election. So very pleased to see this coming to the table. So just a couple of comments. First, and I'm speaking also as somebody who's been a campaign manager with a federal campaign, a provincial campaign, a local campaign, and a candidate. And of course, all of you have had a lot of experience with signs as well. So signs are important. They do help our residents to understand that there is an election going on at whatever level. They also help our residents to understand who is running for council. But as you all know, the downsides, the visual pollution that happens all over the place, a large amount of wastes. I'm sure I'm not the only one with a large number of signs in my outdoor sheds that I haven't figured out a good use for, except they're really good for lining compost bins. I will share that. There is also the cost and the time for candidates. Again, you're all very aware of that. And there's also a lack of fairness I've certainly seen in the past, where candidates who have very small budgets really haven't been able to afford any signs. And the image is that maybe they're not a real candidate because they can't kind of put forward the signs that others can. So I really hope it's something you will all support tonight. Just one thing I wanted to throw out for you to think about in your deliberations and your conversations with staff. It is the issue of fairness. The challenge is, if you have a limited number of locations, everybody's going to be vying for the best space in those locations. I don't have the answers, but how do you make sure it's fair for everybody and everybody gets kind of equal billing? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, please. And I understand we have two via electronic. Please go on.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, the two electronic people have not signed in yet, so.
Okay. Just let me know. Okay, thanks. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm speaking to 9.7, the high density development in the Latoria floodplain. I feel that staff should not be drivers of high density development in Colwood. I feel that the appearance of a conflict of interest is demonstrated by staff discussing inside information regarding zoning prospective buyers and stating that the added cost for hydro costs at the roundabout is justified as being needed for the developers, speculators on Latoria Road. The power is needed by Royal Bay and Royal Beach due to their hydro infrastructure shortfall, with the move more than tripling density of the development and no longer able to use natural gas to make up their energy shortfall. The North Latoria Creek watershed is an area of 372.2 hectares. North Latoria Creek, I'll just say North Latoria Creek is the real name of Latoria Creek, that they didn't want to name the park that, but it is North Latoria Creek, including storm drains, is 3.2 kilometers in length and directly connects Havenwood Park to Latoria Creek Park. The water that flows under VMP at Havenwood Park and the water that flows under VMP at Latoria Road are streams that feed into Latoria Creek. North Latoria Creek is a fish-bearing stream, so federal and provincial approval is required. What is the status of staff's interactions with these authorities? I would think that these approvals would be part of staff's pre-planning of the vision. Presently, a continuous wildlife corridor exists from Latoria Creek Park to Havenwood Park along North Latoria Creek. This wildlife corridor needs to be appreciated and protected. Drive to the end of Bunker Road and you will see something special that needs to be protected. I continue to see Bunker Road, a Royal Bay shortcutting route, in presentations to the public. Tonight it is included in two agenda items, 9.6 and 9.7. I could be wrong there, but why does this continue to be presented? Even without including the special significance of North Latoria Creek from an engineering point of view, the Bunker Road is nonsense. The Wishart-Latoria intersection is a regionally recognized site as it contains such a significant amount of peat It is identified as a dangerous place during an earthquake. Bedrock remains unknown, other than it's been identified as deeper than 6 meters of peat, underlain by 3 meters of clay. Drilling to 15.3 meters failed to find bedrock. This intersection should be considered critical infrastructure due to the material perils that it faces, i.e. earthquakes, rain events, boulders, etc. With the proposal to ignore the significant value of the large floodplain north and west of Wishart Road intersection, the Latoria Road culvert and the Machosen Road culvert is more likely to be lost in a future rain event. Prevention of further damage to the floodplain and adding resilience through ecologic enhancement strategies to the Latoria Road floodplain is prudent. The yellow circle in the middle of the Latoria VMP roundabout showing the location as a neighborhood center on map 8 of the land use was removed from the OCP in 2018, yet it continues to be there. Also from the 2018 OCP, the T intersection of Latoria Road at VMP was to remain a three-way stop. From the 2018 OCP, the transportation study by a consultant referred to the plan for a roundabout as is not recommended due to the unbalanced volumes at this intersection and the resulting poor traffic operations. Why did the previous council change tracks to follow a Royal Bay developer's plan to divert traffic from Machosen Road to an impossible to construct new Latoria Road? More than $7.8 million of taxpayer funds spent on a roundabout that never should have been built. Taxpayers are in great jeopardy due to the actions of the previous council, and this should stop pouring taxpayer debt into such meritless proposals as the further destruction of the senseless ecosystem that still exists in South Colwood. Thank you for your time. And thank you for letting me go over.
Next person, please. Any of the phoners online? Okay, we'll move on then. Thank you very much. Consent agenda. There's 3 items on the consent agenda. The road dedication, BC Transit, Royal Bay, Latoria South Quarry Park Amendment, and the Colwood application to UBCM Community Emergency Preparedness Fund. Any one of these items can be removed if so moved by any member of council. Councillor Jensen and then Councillor Day.
Thank you, Worship. I'll move the consent agenda as written. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Day. I'll go back and get a seconder on that second. Councillor Day.
Thank you. I would like to move 6.1 out of the consent agenda. I believe that this should be referred to the infrastructure committee. There is a lot of moving parts in that location.
Okay, thank you very much. And I'm going to take this opportunity as chair to object to it because I'll tell you what, we've already approved this as council in March 2021. I did my homework on this. This is why I put it on the consent agenda, because we did approve it. And now it's a housekeeping item right now, basically. So it has been approved. That's why I'm going to object.
Okay, if I may speak to it then, why I feel that it needs to go and have a second look at it. What was presented to us is a small piece of land from Wishart Parks and Rec to be dedicated to Colwood, but it appears to impact the right turn lane from Ocean Boulevard onto Souk Road, which is an important access point for the lands in Belmont Park. And it also suggests that a slip lane would be constructed in advance of that intersection, Souk Road and Ocean Boulevard, Whale Road, where we currently have an existing sidewalk. And to tear up that sidewalk and put in that slip lane for the bus to gain 4 or 5 spaces does not make any sense in this particular location, because the roadway there is going to be completely full of cars from Goldstream Avenue all the way to Ocean Boulevard. And to gain 5 spots in that location at the additional cost of removing the sidewalk, that bus is then going to stop at the frequent transit stop on the other side of that intersection. So I'm not objecting to BC Transit improvements in the area whatsoever. I just think that we need to make sure that they're done in a smart and effective way.
Okay, on that note, I will move it to as 7.7 under new business. And does your motion stand as far, okay, the other 2 items then? Councillor Jensen?
Yeah, thank you, your worship. I'll move the other 2 consent agenda items. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And okay, Councillor Ward is seconded. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? It's unanimous, motion carries. Thank you. Okay, getting to new business, election signs. I'll turn it over to Councillor Ward. If you can make your motion and get a seconder, open it for discussion. Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Oops. Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the motion is to request City of Colwood staff to research and subsequently provide council with a draft bylaw to govern signs for elections in Colwood. Specifically seeking them to designate no more than 15 to 20 public locations where election materials would be placed, and then incorporate a size restriction. I would like to amend the proposed size restriction that I placed there. I had a clerical error. So I would put forth an amendment to the motion that the size restrictions for both public and private property would ensure that sign faces may not exceed. So sorry, Marcy, just in case you're following along, everything remains the same with the exception of where it says 36 by 36, that should read 48 by 48. Otherwise, all else remains the same.
Could I get a seconder on the amendment? Okay. Councillor Olson. Discussion on the amendment. Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? And any opposed? Motion carries unanimous. And back to the original motion as amended. Discussion. Seeing none, whoops, Councillor Ward, wish to motivate more?
Thank you. Well, I just want to provide some context, particularly for those who may be reviewing at a later date, checking the minutes and so forth. The impetus behind this reduction is multiple in that it addresses safety concerns raised by a number of the community, both to myself, to West Shore RCMP, and to the city during the election of blocked sight lines, pedestrian obstructions, distractions. There's the environmental concerns, which Scenic has contributed a letter in support of that. As someone who myself had a fair number of election signs, the coroplast materials and the plastic that comes with them, it doesn't disintegrate very easily, and it's going to sit in my garage until probably my life cycle as a local politician is long since expired. And then there's the visual pollution element, of course, too. You ultimately see in not only in our community, but in others, that there's an engagement in what becomes a sign war. Essentially, somebody puts a nice election sign up, so somebody else puts one up next to it. So the other person comes and puts another one, and then another one, and another one. And eventually you're insulting the intelligence of the electorate, who need 1 or 2 signs to read a name. They don't need 15. The management of it is also an issue. I know with Colwood moving to self-governing municipal elections, I know staff have to field complaints about signs being placed in parks, on boulevards, traffic islands, other prohibited areas. And my experience during the election is it's really unenforceable to some extent. And that becomes a bit of a challenge to deal with. And then lastly, as mentioned by Judith Collington, who spoke earlier, there's the question of fair and equitable elections. I think it's an added upside that by somewhat reducing the sheer volume of signs, you effectively remove some of the money from local politics. So even though there are provincial guidelines against money from development companies and unions and both sides of the spectrum, There are end runs around that. We saw in the last election, I'll name no names, but one candidate had, 4 members of the same family donate the maximum amount who own an excavation company in signage. So they're not Colwood residents, but they certainly seem to have a vested interest in having their candidate win. Now, the maximum amount is $5,000. That buys a lot of signs. So somebody like myself, who is entirely self-funded and acknowledge that I would not take money from a developer, is up against it right off the get-go. And I think you see that, in future potential candidates as well. Young people, others with a commitment to grassroots fundraising would be compromised. I also wanted to address, maybe unnecessarily, but preemptively, one concern I've heard from people is, well, incumbents have the advantage if you reduce signs. And to that, I say, well, I'm living proof that that's not the case. I had less signs than many folks during the last election, and was able to not only be elected, but secure the most votes for council. And I say that not to, not to laud my achievement, but to simply say there's something to be said for actually campaigning, sharing your message, going door to door, talking to people. We can do better than just plastering individual names all over the community at the expense of our environment. So that is why I felt that bringing something forward like this now, well in advance of the next election, steers it clear of any sort of political connotations and reduces it down to what it's really all about. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Councillor Jordison.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to thank Councillor Ward for bringing this forward, and I too want to support this. And I think it goes back to back in the day. I mean, signs were supposed to be for the purpose of being on people's lawns, like constituents' lawns, to show their support. And I think we've moved away from that somehow. And I think that this might be a way to get it back to what it's really all about, and not just recognizing faces and maybe researching people and what they're all about. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Day.
Thank you. I'm in agreement. I will say, though, that I think every election I've generally been the stingiest runner in most elections, and I've had lots of questions from the media over the years, just because I didn't spend a lot of money. I have done this job by using my feet, talking to people that I know, but I've also done it with a lot of help from family, and not everybody has that ability. And I wanted to highlight something that Judith said when she was speaking, which was to consider the fairness when we are assigning our slots and spaces. And I think that's really important. So if your name is at the top of a bank of signs in one location, I think it maybe should be in the bottom at another. We need to think about how we can balance that. I'm sure staff will do that when they look at it, but I think it's very important that it is fair. Depending on who you knew in the community, you could maybe utilize certain prime locations, and depending on how well the community knew you, some locations were off limits for people that weren't in their favor. And that's just the way it has been. A lot of signs get vandalized. There is there's a whole thing that happens during the election, and it's not all kind and rosy. So I think we need to talk about the issues and not the people. And I'm really glad that we're having this discussion, because they do end up all over the place. The people that don't care for you, or the kids that find you fun to torment with mustachios or whatever else. There needs to be a little more impact for the effort, and it's a lot of effort, and the money that it costs to do it.
Thank you. Councillor Grove.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would also like to state that I'm looking forward, if this succeeds, to seeing what this bylaw is going to look like, while considering not just which locations, to be fair, but also what those signs look like within those locations. So I'm looking forward to seeing that report. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other comments, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion as amended? That's a unanimous motion carries. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on to item 7.2, controlled substances use in public places. I can get Councillor Jensen to read his motion and get a seconder, and then we'll go back to you for motivation. Okay, Councillor Jensen.
Thank you, Your Worship. My notice of motion is brief and concise, that staff be directed to bring forward bylaw amendment options with respect to use of controlled substances in public places.
Okay, thank you very much. Seconder, Councillor Ward. I'll open it up for discussion. I'll start with you. Motivation.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I'll be brief, because there's been a lot of movement in this area in recent weeks. I started down this road or contemplating this idea when the province moved to decriminalization for several categories of drugs in our province. Rightly or wrongly, that's where we're at. So other communities initially took a very strong tact and quickly created bylaws that served their needs and their interests for their communities. I did take a step back and watch for a while to see how that played out. And the province along the way had also indicated that they were open to ideas for changes to amend the law. And so I really waited to hear what they had to say. We went to, when we went to UBCM this year, the province quickly announced the week of the UBCM, just prior to the start, that they were super excited about the changes that they were proposing. And that included three things, which was 15-meter radius around playgrounds, water parks, and skate parks. I felt that to be inadequate, woefully inadequate, as far as what I was expecting. And I really started taking a harder look at this. Where we are today, the new sitting of the legislature, Bill 34 has been proposed by Minister Farnsworth, and it's currently being debated. So I applaud the province for proposing the bill that's before the legislature right now. We don't know how it's going to unfold, but as written, I believe it adds a lot of teeth to what it is that I was trying to achieve. However, upon reviewing it, which I did again today, I do believe there are still some gaps that we could address with a bylaw for our community. Specifically, it speaks to a park within the meaning of the Park Act. And I did play the legal definitions game and looked it up, and those parks are provincial parks. And then a park within the Local Government Act, those are regional type parks. And then it does define parks intended for recreation by a local government, which would be our parks. So I started looking through the definitions for the definition of recreation, and it's not provided. So to me, recreation reflects some kind of activity. So it's a ball field, or sorry, someone playing ball, or some kind of sports event, or some kind of activity. So I asked myself, someone in quiet contemplation in a nature park, does this apply? And the answer is, I don't know. We of course have several parks which are intended as nature type parks. And is it covered by this proposed legislation? I don't know. And we won't know until this sitting is finished in November. Some other gaps that I see are school grounds are specifically mentioned, and that's a no-brainer, but it doesn't specify anything about the surrounding streets. So in other words, I could stand on the sidewalk and use some drugs overlooking, school grounds. I don't think that's entirely acceptable. Or it doesn't speak to streets or parking lots around parks. So it's okay to sit on the street and do your thing, whatever that might be. It also doesn't, when I reread it again today, it doesn't specifically mention trails. I don't know if that's presumed or not, but we have a lot of trails in this community, and I think there's a gap there. We heard from our police superintendent here in Chambers a few weeks ago, and he asked us that he's looking for tools to help his officers. And I do believe that the provincial amendments in Bill 34 will probably address a lot of what he mentioned.
But again, you know, things at the time before this Bill 34, there was nothing around beaches. And of course, we have a profound beachfront that attracts people from around the region. So in closing, you know, we are the stewards of these areas, this table, the people at this table and the staff in this building. And it's up to us that if we feel like the provincial legislation isn't serving our needs, then we should be amplifying that with creation of a bylaw. I would ask that staff have a look at this and create something that does meet our needs. But also I would be open if staff came back and felt that Bill 34 at the end of the session does meet all of our needs and addresses everything, then I'd be willing to dial this back as well and not embark down this road. But again, we won't know until the end of the sitting, which is in mid-November. So that's it, Your Worship, and
Thank you very much. Councillor Jordan, I'd be next, but I'm going to go to the seconder first. If that's okay. Councillor Ward.
Well, that was unexpected. I will try to be brief because apparently Councillor Jansen and I don't know the definition of that. We both tend to be a little verbose, I'm afraid. I wanted to say that I do support a review of you know, of a municipal bylaw around this, and not because it's a referendum on or a criticism of decriminalization. We know UBCM, as Councillor Jansen stated, supports decriminalization formally. Canadian Association of Police Chiefs recognized decriminalization as an effective way to reduce public health and safety concerns. And locally, where I view, you know, my position on this is best articulated by Grant McKenzie, who, for those that know him, is with Our Place Society. So somebody who's probably well versed in this more so than anyone else. And he's on record as stating open drug use, especially where children can see it, isn't a healthy thing for anyone. So we're not looking to stigmatize or, you know, sort of exclude or prevent folks with the disease of addiction from getting help in our community, but we want to make sure that they get to the right resources. But we need to maintain a healthy community. And I think open drug use in the doorway of libraries or community areas, which right now are gray areas under this proposed Bill 34, is an area of concern. And I think we're obligated to look out for the health of our community in the spirit of what Grant McKenzie has said. Again, somebody who's very, very well versed in the challenges of the disease of addiction. So I would support this motion and, you know, look to see if Bill 34 does indeed do what we need it to do in the community of Colwood. And if it doesn't, if we can strengthen our rules to ensure that libraries and other areas where children congregate are indeed safe and healthy places. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Jordan.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to say that to be honest, in my opinion, I don't believe the province has the right approach to the opioid crisis. And quite frankly, I don't believe that decriminalization pilot is going to save lives. But what I do know is that it makes all first responders' jobs extremely challenging. And I'm not sure how drug decriminalization addresses the overdose crisis in any meaningful way. You know, I agree that children, seniors, and anyone for that matter shouldn't have to be exposed to open drug use. And it wouldn't be any different by aligning open drug use with the current alcohol and smoking policies that are currently in place for public places. But I guess I think that we might need to put a pause. Like, I don't disagree with this motion. I just think that we should maybe put a pause on it until the province, you know, they've just recently announced the shift to ban illicit drug use in municipal parks, and they're working towards that. And I think that maybe we should give them some time to see what this looks like before the city, you know, looks at making amendments and we go down this road. You know, we also need to think about the Ministry of Health and Island Health to be consulted, and to be quite frank, I can't wait till this 3-year pilot is over, because I don't think it's doing what it needs to do, and I think this is the wrong approach. But safeguarding our communities is the utmost importance, and I think that we should just maybe give the province an opportunity to address this first.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Day.
Thank you. I agree with Councillor Jordison's point about waiting to see where the province lands on this. It is one of those areas, it's our area to protect, but also having the appropriate responses is important. And I really feel that I'm not in the same mindset in terms of, decriminalization and destigmatization of a health issue such as addiction is important, but there is a lot of other steps that need to be taken to address the issues that are happening in every corner of this province. And I don't want to prematurely invest staff time, which is one of our most costly items, in developing a response when we don't have all the facts yet. So I'm not opposed to doing things to make our community safe for children and families. I have not seen open drug use in Colwood that has been concerning to me. I haven't had it reported to me. I have seen it in other neighboring municipalities, so I have no doubt it will move this way. And we certainly do have a need to keep our natural parks safe and our trails safe. I just would like us to do it after we know what we're dealing with from the province.
Thank you very much. Councillor Grove.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to also put my comment in favor of making sure that this sits on top of the provincial legislation properly. So perhaps if deferring it is holding back, and Councillor Jensen, you mentioned perhaps dialing back once we hear what the province is up to makes sense to me. However, the urgency of the matter, the gravity of the matter, I think justifies some action if it's not anything but to show intent. Our staff time is valuable, however, so if the province is forthcoming in a reasonable amount of time, this would help a great deal and we can respond quickly. I'm not sure how that proceeds given the state of this this particular motion. I'm inclined to support it on the matter of what it represents, and if anything, toughen it so much so that it almost makes the initial pilot ineffective. 15 meters from a schoolyard that's like from here to the wall, not even, it's nothing. So I think we need to really make sure it's strong enough to matter. And I think that would come quite possibly anyhow, from what I've heard of what the province is planning, that we might be back here discussing this very thing anyhow. So if the actual work of this effort by our staff can go in line with the province, which presumably it would anyhow, I would happily move it forward.
Thank you very much. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was really happy to see Councillor Jansen bring this motion forward, although I do happen to agree with the rest of council regarding the province's proposed ban. And I suppose it depends on where you live in Colwood as whether or not or how often you have seen open drug use. I know that I have seen it quite often. So I would certainly support this, potentially just waiting to hear what the province says. So I don't know if Councillor Jansen can speak to that as to a potential timeline for when the province was coming forward with this proposed ban.
Councillor Jensen.
Yeah, thank you. I hear you all. I really do. Here's the thing. This sitting in the legislature and it runs to like November 10th, November 15th, something like that. And I think if anyone here believes that we would hear back on a bylaw before then, I think is fairly utopian in nature. And I did say in my motivation there that I do expect staff to analyze what does come from the province and make sure that it fits with our bylaw. So I don't think these two are conflicting with each other. I believe our staff can certainly monitor what's happening with this bill as it progresses. But I don't see why we can't at least get this started now with some kind of resolution at some point in November. And no, I would not expect staff to come back with a bylaw in advance of what's happening with Bill 34. And I would anticipate that this would take beyond that November date anyway. So I suspect that, it would naturally answer, what it is that you guys, all of you have brought up. My reticence to wait is that, each time I've waited, we've been underwhelmed by the provincial response to this. So let's crack on, honestly. And I think that we'll hear back from our professional staff at the right time with a proposed bylaw. And I mean, there's no turnaround timeline on my motion here. So I would hope that they would do that work organically. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. I'll conclude the comments here. I guess I live in an area very close to you, and I actually was walking the trail there, and the kids were sitting on the bench and they were smoking up there, and I kindly told them that it's not a good idea, and they told me to take a flying hike. Not in those words, but and geez, I'm just the mayor. That's it, So, but then when I reported it to our superintendent Preston, he says, "Doug, I have no teeth to do anything about it." So that's an interesting point. So I'm of the same opinion of if I hear it right now, that most people wanted to wait till the bill was actually introduced and see how we can get around this. But I know that in late breaking news here, talking with the CEO, that we have or we can get some of the best practices already that have been prepared by other municipalities in BC that are really good, apparently. And for him to get his hands on it now at this point in time would be a great thing. And I can see this with the understanding that this is done in parallel, and that we make sure we don't publish, we don't get ahead of ourselves and put out something before the bill is actually introduced. I'd be okay with that. Concurrent activities could happen. It's going to have to happen. And I'm sure we're going to have to beef it up somehow, but to go out and get the best practice ones right now is not much staff time to me. That's why I'm going to support it with that understanding that let's not get this thing out before the actual legislation is passed, because I just hate doing things twice. If something's already done, it's just very inefficient. So with that understanding, I'm going to support this particular motion. Okay, is there any other discussion? Seeing none, I'm going to call the question on the motion. All those in favor? And opposed? Seeing none, the motion carries unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for introducing that, Councillor Jensen. Okay, going on, next item 7.3, Mary Ann Crescent Road Extension. I just want to remind everyone here, this item is for information only. And I'll let the people from public speak here in a second here. And council is welcome to ask questions after the presentation. And should any member of council wish to pursue the road extension of Mary Ann Crescent, the staff report does provide two options to consider, which may be moved by any member of council. I said, let's stick with the TMP or motion to change it. Okay. I shall open it up to the public. Thank you. Oh, come on up. Just identify yourself. If you could just identify yourself and where you live.
My name is Brent Fishback and I'm a resident of Delore Drive. And sorry, I was a little anxious. I wanted to be the first one up here, but because there's a number of speakers. Thank you, Mayor and Council. I appreciate it. These comments are related to the staff report provided with the agenda for the Mary Ann Road extension. And I'd like to clarify a couple of points made in the report. Given the city staff decision to not pursue Mr. Briggs's independent request for a road extension as part of the subdivision application, it seemed the best way forward was to present a petition to council representing the collective voice of residents on Delora Drive to request that the city formally reevaluate the development plans of both BC Alta, the condo, and Turnberry developments for the inclusion of a road connection linking the two developments. I just want to say that this is a community in which we live and we are surrounded by significant development activity. As residents, we wanted to know that due diligence was done on the building site that had been dormant for a number of years. It was not our intention to cause frustration for the developer or delay that development plans in any way. So I just want clarification of that. The staff report concludes that after re-examining the issue, staff found a road extension from Marianne to the new condo development is not required and provided some alternative options, as you pointed out, Mr. Mayor. And I just want to close by saying that moving forward with whatever decision council reaches, we ask an agreement between the two developers to maintain access through the temporary an agreement be made between the two developers to maintain access through the temporary corridor that is already in place over Marion Crescent to support construction vehicle access for the future condo building until such time as Turnberry Developments is building on the affected lots. So what we request is just that that road has been used to support development of the condo and that continues to be used until such time that it can no longer be used because it's a straighter route and it's not going over narrow strata roads. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please. I have 3 speakers for this item. Sorry. Oh, I see. They just that, you know, the shot on the agenda. Yeah, that's the one.
Well, perhaps I'll get started while we're hoping to see the map. My name's Joe Donnelly. I'm a resident of Delora Drive. I live in the little strip of homes that are between the main Delora Drive and a little lane that runs up along the property in question. There are 9 homes in that little strip. 7 of them face away from Delora Drive so that that little lane, the private road, is actually our primary access. And the development that's proposed, the development that's proposed would actually be out the front door for most of us, for 7 of those buildings. I have 3 quick points. The first one deals with blasting. These are 14 blasting notices that I've received in the past 10 years. There were more in the 10 years before that, before I decided to start collecting them. So I've been living with this for over 20 years. I've been in that house for 25 years. So my first rhetorical question is, when is enough enough? Yes, that one would be great if we could zoom in. There, that's pretty good. So my home is down in the right-hand corner. It's number 27 on the map. And you can see the lane along the black border there is the lane between us and the new development. If you look at the rounded proposed road that runs parallel to our lane, that runs along a high rocky ridge. It's like a whale's back. To level that road and put houses on either side will mean reducing that whole whaleback ridge to a level plain. And that's going to entail a tremendous amount of blasting. I'm not sure that people appreciate that. If you look at your own copy of this map, you can see the contour lines. Those are steep sides. So it's a tremendous amount of blasting at a time when we've already been enduring blasting for more than 2 decades. For that reason, I support anything that will reduce the densification of that ridge. And the item in particular that talks about leaving the variance alone at 20 meters, I support that because at least that would reduce the density a little bit. My second point is about halfway along that lane, there has just, as far as I know today, appeared a little rectangle that says emergency vehicle turnaround. This I find curious because we have begged Colwood repeatedly to clear that little private road, and Colwood has said, nope, not our problem. Well, if you're not going to clear it, why do we need emergency vehicle access up there? In the wintertime, you can't get up that hill. So there's no need for an emergency vehicle turnaround that I can see. Or conversely, if you want the emergency vehicle turnaround, how about clearing the road? My last point is, I think, and I would have been nice to be able to refer to the map, but the end of that lane on the developer's side, there are a number of arbutus trees. I don't know what the deal is, but I thought arbutus trees were supposed to be protected. So I wonder if there's any plan in place to protect that stand of woods, which includes a lot of arbutus trees and which provides quite a nature habitat. There's a pair of doves up there. There's a pair of owls up there. There's about 3 dozen California quail, all make use of that piece of bush up there. And those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please. The third speaker.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, councillors. John Briggs, 556 Delora Drive. I'm going to begin with a quote from the what the staff have done with this, and it says, to date, staff's rationale and analysis behind this decision has not been accepted by Mr. Briggs as adequate. And that applies for today as well. Staff, as far as I'm concerned, didn't address Brent's presentation. Item 1 or item 2. Item 1 was, it's the proposal we're making is the shortest route to the destination. I jokingly use the word destination is going to be Costco. There's less environmental impact on building that extended road through to the condo development that's proposed. The city has a website that is quite proud of their climate efforts. They call it the Climate Action Plan. Net zero. Colwood, under these terms, will never achieve environmental goals by the year 2050 if they let these type of developments go ahead without making it available to the shortest route. You must take these small steps. The site also wants people to drive less. And just in summary, If we are not listening, we're not moving ahead. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else? Oh, ma'am, please.
Hi, my name's Jackie Evans. I live at 592 Cotton Way. I've lived there since 2009. I have a disabled child. She uses a wheelchair. Our street, I'm assuming, is a standard size. So on this notice that I got, that you want to change the width of a street from 20 meters to 16 or 18 meters wide. I'm assuming that's more narrow than what our street is at this time. My child was not able to be picked up by the special needs school bus. So they were unable to come up our street. So you're telling me that other children on any one of these, I'm sure, are going to be multi-million-dollar houses are not going to be able to be picked up to go to school. So their parents will have to wheel them down the street several blocks to be picked up, because that's what I had to do. I don't know if you're aware, but there are children that can't walk or parents that can't walk that need to have special needs transportation or modified transportation. I don't know if you're looking at that. I understand that there was supposed to be a committee that was looking at that. Are there going to be vehicles that are going to be able to get through, to get into these people that are in need? We had someone just 2 houses up from us that passed away that needed emergency services. They can't get around our street. So everyone had to drive up and then back down our street. Okay. It hasn't been explained to us why you need to narrow the street or what this development's going to look at. All you said is this is an information center. So I got someone to come and take care of my child because she can't be by herself. So I've come to this meeting and all we know is the difference is maybe it's 14 feet more narrow, but you could be putting people's lives at risk here. And you haven't explained why. But you're all sitting here. And what I've heard is that you're worried about children being exposed to people that use, and that it is a mental illness, but you haven't talked about safe injection sites or protecting people with mental illness. So I've heard a lot about fear, but I haven't heard about safety. And I vote too. And guess what? So does my kid, because she's over 18. So that's what I want to hear from you guys tonight is what's this about? Because before you put another child at risk or that you have to take them down and wheel them for several blocks so they can go to school on a school bus, why are you narrowing the streets? Because you haven't explained why. And I don't know if the developers are here to explain why, but it's worth money in their pockets. So before you put anybody at risk, that's what I want to know why.
Thank you very much. Anyone electronically this time? No. Okay, I'm going to open up the floor to council for questions. We'll start with Councillor Ward.
I'd firstly thank the members of the public who've taken the time this evening to come provide your feedback both now and earlier in public presentation. Listen to what you've said, and we're not making a decision on this particular agenda item this evening, but we will. I will certainly take your comments at heart. I have a special needs child myself, so I don't discount any challenges that come with that. I think any decision making that I would make around road widths will certainly look to incorporate the requirements laid out by Handy Dart, BC Transit, and others. I think it's logical that we you know, that we take that into account and that the city takes that into account. So I appreciate your feedback. My comments, though, I really are directed through the chair to staff. I question why, quite honestly, the procedures around this whole issue coming before council. Number one, if I refer to bylaw 1890, myself as an elected councillor, if I want to bring something before council, I have to provide 7 days notice of a motion. There's no commentary after that to suggest that I need to then wait 2 more weeks to the next meeting, although that seems to be the adopted methodology that we do. According to the writing, it could be interpreted as I have 7 days, file a motion, and then it should be heard at the next council meeting, but that's not the case. Somewhere along the way, so let's just hold on there for a second. So that's 7 days to have a notice of motion, which then comes on the agenda as a notice of motion, then 2 more weeks to be heard before council. So 3 weeks where I, as an elected councillor, have to wait before I can be heard at the table. Somewhere in this term, certainly didn't exist in the last term. I've gone through quite a few minutes and videos lately. We have determined that if a resident sends in a letter or a petition or anything else, it immediately comes on the agenda, which is in some ways okay with me because the issue we're discussing here is very relevant to a lot of people. I want to hear from our residents. I want them to have that opportunity. But I wonder why it is that myself as a councillor have to wait 3 weeks to bring an agenda item forward and a resident can do it in a day or two. You know, maybe I should have my wife send in some of the things that I want to get done around here. I might get it done a little faster. So you can tell I'm a little frustrated by that. And in this particular case, where this becomes relevant is that the gentleman that came forward with their petition, it was presented to council as kind of a new item. These residents have a petition, we should hear it. And in good faith, we listened. We asked a few questions and we said, okay, let's send it back to staff and have them return with information and direct that to the transportation committee. That was specifically the direction that came through from the last meeting. In the intervening time, we now discover that the city had all the information all along, that they've been meeting with these residents, with the developer, with other people involved for weeks in advance of this. Why were we not made aware of that? Why was there not a background put together? Much like if I'm bringing a motion for it, as I did with the election signs today, I had a full 1-pager that described everything I knew about it, had all readily available research ready and available to anyone who needs it. Why did the city then not push this forward by a week or two, a couple meetings down the road to say, okay, we are introducing a motion, an agenda item tonight, or we're giving a week notice like everybody else has to. We're going to bring forward this citizen petition and we're going to provide you with a staff report and all relevant information that feeds into it. Instead, we've had a petition come forward. Now these good folks have had to come back and speak their piece again. We've had to take the time to read this report, and we're going to come back again at a later date to make decisions on it. If this is not a massive waste of time, I don't understand what is. Procedurally, I think our bylaws are silent on how to address resident issues being put on the agenda, but I'm done with it. I'll be calling a point of order in future and refusing to hear it again. It needs to go through either the same methodology as what councillors have to put forward, or it's irrelevant as far as I'm concerned. We have a major procedural issue and it's frustrating for everybody. And the folks out there may not quite get what I'm getting at because you're not here every meeting like I am, but there was an opportunity to come forward with your petition, have all the information readily available to council, and a decision could have been made in that moment. Instead, here we are again, night after night. So I'll said my piece, but as you can tell, I'm a little bit frustrated by this ongoing kind of arbitrary change to how we see things before council.
Thanks very much. And I can answer some of that, Councillor Ward, if I may. And Mr. Earl, if you can correct me as I go along here. Yes, you're sort of correct. This was first, the petition was actually first presented to staff, and they tried to resolve it using our AR process. And so basically, the action request form was responded to by staff, and the group did not feel that that was satisfactory to them. So they have every right to then elevate it up to council. And that's how this all started. So when there was a lot of staff work that was happening in the background, it's because, yes, that's true, they were, but it was being staffed as an action request at that time. So, and so therefore they elevated so everything you say is true, but the circumstances of it was an action request, like many things, many letters that we get in right now are staffed as action requests. And anyone does have the right, if they're not satisfied with the response by the city, they can raise it up to council. So, yeah, so that's what I understand happened. Go ahead, Councillor Ward.
I appreciate your explanation, Mr. Mayor, but I would question why, though, when it was known that the petition would have to come before council, that the background information also wasn't provided, that we were left in the dark. My impression was that this was a petition. It was the first time it had been heard by anybody. There was nothing contrary said at the time to indicate that there had been previous discussion. There should have been some notification that process had been followed, that these folks had interactions with the city, and as a last resort, it was now being elevated. And on that latter point, I would say again, our bylaws are silent about how to have resident issues brought before council in that way. So either we amend the bylaw or it's non-existent, and then I would have the right to then say, okay, I don't need to hear it. I understand what you're saying. It's logical to say, okay, if the citizens can't get a result through staff, it should elevate to council, but then we should get all of the relevant information in that package. And I suggest we amend our bylaws so that there is a mechanism that formalizes this, so that in future it's no longer this gray area that sort of drifts in and drifts out. And I just have to draw on my own experience as a fairly upset resident, much like these folks, when I'm dealing with a development issue in my neighborhood that got me into this in the first place. I have written proof of sending in letter after letter to the city, being ignored by most people, with the exception of a couple councillors. Not once was it ever proposed to me that I could bring my issue and have it elevated to council. So you can understand my frustration that there seems to be a secret rule book under the table here that I'm missing. Thank you.
And I don't think there's any malicious intent whatsoever. Do you have anything to add to that, Mr. Earl?
Thank you, Your Worship. So administration, when a member of the public, either live in a meeting or in written communication, asks that an item be placed on the agenda, we bring that to the next agenda review committee. And at that determination is made whether or not it goes on the next agenda.
Thank you very much. Hey, Councillor Jordison.
Hi, I just have something to add to that. Actually, the very first thing I think we're missing here is that the letter that was sent in by the residents, regardless of who it was given to or not, it was addressed to council as well as the engineering staff. So we didn't receive that letter, and we didn't know about it until it showed up on this agenda or on the agenda and was at this meeting as a petition. So there was something was missed there, that we didn't receive that letter ahead of time. It was addressed to council. It should have gone to council. I guess I just want to, we're still on the extension of Marianne. And I just want to say that I think that there were some comments made about requesting access to for BC Alta to still access through Marianne or whatever. I understand. I don't think that that's something that we can the council can address, because I believe there's insurance issues, liability concerns, and I think that developer at Turnberry has been doing that out of the goodness of their heart. They don't have to allow that access, and I think there is concerns there. So I don't think that that's something that council or the city can direct. But also in regards to this whole request for this access road, I think that it seems to me that it's coming forward because it's something that is, the traffic is an issue for the homes up there that are just going to be coming down from the condo building, and that's only 48 units. So I think I think people that live up, that have bought up in that newer area, knew that that was going to be the case. And I think that we have to kind of divert the traffic all over the place. We can't have everything coming down onto Marianne Crescent. We can't have everything coming down on Cotton. So I'm not in support of extending the road.
Thanks so much. Councillor B.
Thank you. And I'm going to try to be careful to stick to the agenda item here. But it does, the process and council's frustration with the process and having issues, you know, 2 items on this agenda are really about the same thing and presented differently. But it's frustrating to me that as a member of this council who ostensibly is directing staff, we're not getting the information from staff of what's happening behind the scenes here. So staff are, and I realize there's challenges with that. I'm not trying to be hard on staff, but I'm just trying to point out that process-wise, this is not working well for us. It's not helping staff to have it come here and surprise us. It's not helping council to have things percolating in the community that we're not aware of what staff are doing with them. So we need to address that. And where I thought we were going when it came to transportation and infrastructure was that we have or are planning to stand up a committee to deal with those issues so that we can try to step back a little bit and look at the bigger picture, look at access issues, look at mobility issues, ensure that we can get ambulances and fire trucks and everyone to the places that they need to be, and that disabled children can go to their schools on the transportation that is available and ready to pick them up, except for that some of our roads have been continuously getting smaller. So I'm going to leave it at that. I think we know we need to fix some things. I'm not in favor of turning every single road into a transportation route for all of Colwood, but I am interested in being sure that our roads are wide enough for proper snow clearing, that we have the ability to walk on our roads and beside our roads, and some nature left to enjoy when we're said and done all of the things that we have to have there. Thanks.
Thank you very much. So does any, oh, sorry, Councillor Olson, before I make my comments.
That's okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You did mention tonight that we weren't here to make a decision on 7.3, but I did want to share my feelings on this as to why I'm not in support of this road connection between Delora and Marianne. And the reason for that is that we've got on Turnberry properties here, 69 potential developments. It seems fair and reasonable to me that we would funnel those. There will be a road connection between Marianne and Cotton Way upon that development. So we're going to see traffic funneling down Marianne Crescent and down Cotton Way. And that's going to connect to Marianne. The proposed future developments, the 48 units and the 16 strata townhomes, it seems natural to me that they would flow down Delora. And so what that does is you've got the 69 units plus the 49 and the 16 townhomes funneling down Delora, kind of shares a little bit of the piece of the pie, so to speak, so that we're sharing that road traffic down multiple roads. To me, that sounds safer. It also just seems reasonable. But we also have to consider, and to staff as well, that as these developments are growing in that neighborhood, Marianne is becoming a collector. And I do live in close vicinity to this neighborhood, so I see the activity there already all the time. Marianne is a very busy road already, and it is going to get busier. And we're going to start collecting traffic from multiple roads onto Marianne. And there's a park nearby at Ocean View. And so we see a lot of people already. I see familiar faces in the audience. blasting through that stop sign. So with all of these developments, we do need to consider Marianne is going to need some safety improvements. So with that being said, I'm not in support of this connection. That $1.3 million potentially to taxpayers, it just doesn't make sense to me. I think that we all need to realize that these neighborhoods are growing, and I think that it seems reasonable to be sharing the traffic load down multiple roads. And I just wanted to share my thoughts on that. So thank you.
Thank you very much. So I support the staff, what the staff have already recommended. And this is why this is just for information only, and unless one of the councillors here wants to make a recommendation against it. I'm certainly open to that right now, but for the same reason, I guess my philosophy is, and I've seen this already, everything that we've done so far with speed bumps, with all kinds of things that we've tried to do to put a Band-Aid on solutions, but put Band-Aids on problems around the city. So for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And what would have made this maybe wholer, a whole picture to me right now, is that I took the opportunity actually to talk to some people along Marianne Crescent about the idea, and I got greeted differently. That's for sure. So the only people we've heard from are the people that live on Delora. And to be fair, to be absolutely fair, I would have loved to have seen the people along Marianne Crescent, sign up to this thing too, just so that I understand that we're seeing the bigger picture here. Because like I say, if we do this, what's going to happen? I'm not too sure. Are we just moving a problem around? I'm not sure. So there's a lot of questions in my head right now. And so, the safest thing for me is to stick with the TMP. And if the TMP is wrong, well, let's change it. So that's my feeling on this right now. But I certainly want to open it up to any one of the councillors if they want to make a motion arising from this. Councillor Jordison.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to not pursue this road extension of Marianne Crescent to 535 Delora.
So that's where we're sitting right now, though. Do we need a
Well,
separate
it's-
motion, Mr. Earl, on this?
Because it's just for information though.
Yeah.
I just wanted to take care of it now.
Oh, I see what you're trying to do, but that is what we're doing right now by not taking action, no motion. It's going to stand as the staff decision at this point in time.
But the staff decision is option 1 or option. Like if you look, there's 2 options. There's no option to not.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
There's no option to not do it. It's to expropriate land or to amend the city's
Fair enough.
policy. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Your worship, if I may,
Yes, please.
the staff recommendation for this report is just to receive it as information. Alternately, council could make one of the other 2 motions that are within the report.
Right.
So we're going to waste council time to bring this back again to get. Is this going to hang out there and wait till a
No,
rainy day
because-
till we deal with it?
Because the action right now is that they're going to do nothing. They're going to stick with the TMP,
Okay.
right? Am I correct, Mr. Earl?
Absent redirection from staff, we will continue on the planned course of action, which was not to create this road extension.
Correct.
Okay, we'll just leave it
That's
there.
what I understand. Councillor Day.
I just want to make the point that the transportation master plan is not this council's vision. It is the previous council's vision. And I am certainly hopeful that we can improve upon that vision through the infrastructure committee, which is what, at least what I promised when I ran for election, was to involve the citizens and follow what they want for their community. And that's really important to me. There is a number of things that are in the transportation master plan that were vehemently opposed by residents at that time. And I really do think we need to revisit some of it, including connections to Veterans Memorial Parkway, for vehicles that will trample environmental benefits that currently exist.
Thank you for your comments. And you're correct, because it is a draft TNP. Okay, thank you. Okay, seeing no motion, I'm just going to move on to 7.5. And ma'am, I'm going to address your concern. I'm going to ask that question specifically because this is where your question belongs right now, just under the width of the streets. I do have a specific question that I'll be asking staff on your behalf on this. Thank you. 7.4, sorry, I can't read. You want to come up to the mic, please? No, I'm going to that next, yeah.
This wasn't the neighborhood that's been designed. What's this? Okay. So when I moved into my house in 2009, this wasn't the neighborhood that I was moving into. So when was this designed? Because Cotton Way actually was a cul-de-sac. It wasn't, Marianne Crescent came up and went around. It was a crescent. Cotton Way was a cul-de-sac.
Yeah.
So it's the developer that's decided that our road will be connected to Marianne Crescent?
It's proposed. It's proposed right now. It's in a, yeah.
Yes.
Sorry.
Go ahead, I lost you.
So because someone owns the property, they get to decide whether the street I
Sorry,
live on
excuse me,
is a
it's
cul-de-sac?
a point of
Need to
order.
interrupt for a second. I just
point
need
of
to
order.
call a point of order. We're getting a little out of control here.
Absolutely.
We've had public participation. I do appreciate what you said, but debating
Yeah.
private land developments and things can stick with the agenda item. We can't have a back and forth continually through.
I was just doing a clarification of your point to answer your question. Okay, thank you. Okay, so we're going to move on to 7.4, which is the DVP, Marianne Crescent. And who's, oh, there you are. Go ahead, Deanna.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Okay, I'm Deanna Eden, and I will be making a short presentation with regards to the requested variance permit. The developer is proposing can you put that up? Sorry. Apologies. It's the red one, right? No. Okay. This is the proposed vision of the Marianne Crescent subdivision. The developer has made an application for a development variance permit to reduce the road right-of-way widths from our standard 20 meters, which is within our subdivision and development bylaw, down to 18 meters for the Marianne Crescent main road that goes through, and then down to 16 meters for the two cul-de-sacs. The proposed frontage works that are required within these right-of-ways must meet the requirements under the city's subdivision and development bylaw number 285 and meet the objectives and principles within the official community plan, which include safety, comfort, convenience of walking for all ages and abilities, and by planting boulevard trees to ensure significant tree canopies to be protected and enhanced over time. The transportation master plan provides cross sections, which you will see in some later slides, for consideration for all roads, and the active transportation network plan provides guidance on the various treatments based on those road designations. A little bit of background, as our public has mentioned, the previous subdivision, Marianne Crescent and Cotton Way, are both 20-meter right-of-ways. Spotswood Terrace and one of the roads just north of the development are at 16 meters, Pattison Way, sorry. Boulevard trees were not a high priority during this time of the first phases and other projects in the same period. Consequently, no boulevard trees were planted for the specific subdivision, and therefore no concerns related to the reduced 16 meters for Spotswood and Pattison Way, for example, in terms of boulevard trees. Some of the photos here, this is Marianne Crescent at the top and Cotton Way, showing we have no boulevard trees within this area, but it is 20 meters right of way. And then Pattison Way and Spotswood, these are 60-meter right of ways. Again, no boulevard trees, which is what we're not looking forward to these days. We want to see some more canopies within our new subdivisions. These are the two cross sections showing within our bylaw and our transportation master plan, showing both at 20-meter right of ways. These need to accommodate sidewalks, boulevard, our utilities, street lighting, and trees. An example of what we have at 18 meters includes separated sidewalks on both sides of the right of way. Pavement widths are 6.5 for single lane traffic in both directions. Curb boulevard to accommodate parking bays, street lighting, boulevard, trees, and underground utilities. In this case, we have 1 meter statutory right of ways behind the sidewalks to accommodate our sanitary and storm and water boxes, because we would like to keep the boxes outside of our sidewalks. In conclusion, to request reduction of a road right of way does not compromise the intent of the Colwood bylaw and transportation master plan and the active transportation network plan. It can still allow for important elements such as sidewalks, connecting existing roads to new roads, boulevard trees, straight lighting, parking. However, it is essential for thorough design planning by the developer to accommodate all necessary underground and above ground infrastructure within the reduced road right of way. The need to provide statutory right of ways may be required if this becomes challenging. The request to reduce widths to 16 for the two cul-de-sacs pose a concern that the width may not adequately accommodate all the required infrastructure as known today. The city is taking a conservative approach to a plan for the future, as we do not want infrastructure. We do not know what infrastructure needs may look like in 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now. To ensure this way we would like to ensure there is room for those changes in the future. Therefore, staff does not support this specific request for the 16 meters. However, staff does support the request reduction of the road right of way to 18. 3 options that we have provided is option 1 to approve the 18 but deny the 16. Option 2 would be to grant both reductions, or 3, deny both reductions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Leanne. Questions, just not on the motion, just questions on the presentation, please. Councillor Ward.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I was going to speak to the motion, but from a staff perspective, do you foresee, like, is it known at this stage whether there's any challenge in terms of handy dart access? Because from what I've been able to research here fairly quickly, you know what, actually, sorry, I'm going to leave this to a little later. I've got the answers to my question already, so I'm going to bring it up when we get to the motion.
Councillor Jordison.
Thank you, Mayor. So I have some questions. I guess I'm not understanding. So I guess from what I understand is that the subdivision, the bylaw for subdivisions is being worked on currently by staff to reduce the the road widths to 18 meters from 20?
I think there's an option for 18, but it's always preferred 20.
Okay, so I think, I know in my neighborhood, we have, we have certain road widths, but we have also narrow road widths. And I think from the map that, like, I think we may be characterizing this a bit incorrectly. I think it's only certain areas within, it's not the whole cul-de-sac or the whole road that they're asking to have narrowed, it's in certain areas. Is that-
They're proposing the main road that's connecting from Marianne Crescent to Cotton Way to be 18.
Yeah.
And then the two cul-de-sacs to be 16. That's the proposed.
So, but why are we, why is the city requesting that there be sidewalks all throughout it and at the full 2 meters? Like
That is under our active transportation, active network active transportation network plan. That is the guideline to use 2 meters.
and this is where we end up with this. The active transportation network plan has not been approved and there are issues with it. And so that's one of them. Also, like, why are we requiring this buffer, like this buffer, grass buffer plus, like, I'm just looking at this, like, it just seems extreme. I don't have that in my cul-de-sac and it's not that old.
Yeah, it's changed from obviously when your subdivision was developed. A lot of it is to, and as an example, snow clearing. Where's the snow going once you plow it off the road? It's going onto the boulevard instead of the sidewalk, for one. This will help alleviate snow clearing from the sidewalks by the residents or the crews. We need room.
But we built Royal Bay, and did we think about snow clearing there?
There's
Because
separate
there's
sidewalks there.
issues there, right? I see there's a lot of roads. I think even Mayor Kobayashi lives on Byzantin Way that has a smaller road width, and it's not really that much smaller. I'm just not understanding. I agree the accessibility issue has to be, a priority, but I'm not in these areas within the roadway. I'm not understanding why it is a concern. But thank you. Okay.
Thanks so much. Councillor Jansen.
Thank you, Your Worship. A few questions. Thank you, Deanna. But so the current prevailing cross section for the community for a development such as this is the 20-meter cross section with sidewalks on both sides with a bit of buffering and some landscaping.
Yeah, you see in our current bylaw, which hopefully is going to change before the end of the year. But it does show the sidewalk on the one side where our TMP shows it on both sides.
Right.
And so it's would depend on what connectivity we have, I guess, with the pedestrians, if we're connecting to a trail or a park, or how council wants to see that neighborhood.
What's driving this 2-meter reduction? Like what need are we addressing? Is there something specific engineering wise that we're trying to achieve?
I think just trying to get all the to allow for boulevard trees. We have proper spacing in the boulevard. Underground utilities, we try to keep them out from underneath the sidewalk because we don't want boxes all over our sidewalks. So it's preferred to be within a boulevard. So that shifts things over a little bit. Then you start to talk about street lighting. Again, you want them in the boulevard. Again, underground utilities, wiring, conduit. So there's some strategic planning that needs to be made by the developer to ensure we don't have countless boxes in our sidewalks. We have the proper street lighting for safety and the tree canopy that we are so geared up for.
And you're telling me that none of that can be achieved with a
It
20-meter
could
cross
be.
section
It
with
can be.
sidewalks and boulevard on both sides?
It can be. It's going to be tight.
Okay.
And again, to make sure there's room for our trees to grow and they don't encroach or cause an issue with the underground utilities.
I'm trying to understand, you know, the Cadillac to the Volkswagen and why.
Yeah.
So yes, some surrounding neighborhoods only have the sidewalk on
Correct.
one side of the street.
Yeah.
You know, I happen to be not far from here and that's the case on my street.
Yeah. And
It
it is the
would be-
case for Marianne Crescent and Cotton Way. They are on one side.
And in fact, not fully connected on Marianne Crescent. There's portions
Correct.
that have zero
Correct.
sidewalk. So I guess what I'm trying to get at, that's a big site. There's lots of room. It's
Yeah.
not like we're trying to squeeze a development onto a small area.
Yeah.
So, and it's starting from scratch here. So
Correct.
I think if we're at the design phase, why would we not consider adherence to bylaw 285 as our start position?
Mhm.
And then come back and tell me or theoretically why we can't do that.
Right.
As opposed to, you know, what we're talking about here is 56 homes that are gonna be worth. Well, I know how much they're gonna be worth, and it's not insignificant. So a loss of a 2 meter dedication to the community, I don't think is too much to ask. And that's why I'm trying to ascertain what the engineering result would be, the difference between 18 and 20.
18, I don't think it's that significant and we can work with that. It's the 16 that I think is a little bit more,
I gotcha. Okay.
the 16
so-
is where we're.
So.
Our bylaws ask for 20. We're in support of 18, not 16. But it's also good to consider what might change in the future where we might need more right of way. And then we're fighting then we can't get it. Or we have to get a statutory right of ways.
Right, and I think an opportunity was missed in some of the surrounding neighborhoods.
Correct.
Where we could have had sidewalks on both sides and we could have had some neighborhood trees.
That's right.
So, quite frankly, you know, we've heard a lot tonight and some of the access and egress issues in the neighborhood and some of the traffic. Sure as heck, people are gonna park on both sides of the street, so then we're left with, you know, the ladder truck trying to negotiate it. I'm sure it's fine, it's a minimum, but why would we shoot for a minimum?
Right.
Let's start with the Cadillac, is my position, and I'm gonna oppose this as written. Thank you, Your Worship.
Which option are you opposing? Councillor Day, please.
Just wondered if staff had something else they wanted to add.
Go ahead, please.
I just wanted to invite the applicant who is also here to present. So maybe they will be able to articulate the reasoning and rationale behind the request. So I think Deanna has outlined the engineering position for support for 18 and a discomfort with the 60-meter. And then the applicant is here to outline their request and the case for that. So I just want to
can I-
give her an opportunity to come forward and share her position.
I did not realize that. I didn't see that on the agenda. So
Yeah, it wasn't on our agenda to have the
Um,
applicant. I'd like to finish my points, so certainly we'll listen to the applicant when they want to speak. I wanted to ask Deanna, do you know what the design road width was for Royal Bay? Because there are a number of places that is sidewalk, boulevard, street trees, street furniture, and there is a few places still, even within that community, that everybody enjoys so much at Halloween time because of those boulevards and sidewalks and the ability to move around. There are still a few tight spots in Royal Bay, for example. So I just wanted to sort of try to compare that to what we're doing here.
Sorry. I don't know exactly all of them, but from what I recall seeing, I think most of them are 20 and 18. There might be some that are slightly less, and I'm not sure why, but we can always confirm. But I think they're all within the 18 for sure.
Great.
It's except the roundabout, the
Cul-de-sac.
cul-de-sacs.
Yeah.
They're narrower. I know that.
Yeah, and they are. I kind of do know the answers to those roads because I was here then too. But it is important to me that there is additional room for mobility. And I'll just share quickly, I was walking my dogs and a particular location, a confluence of roads in Royal Bay that has become a real kid playground hotspot. There's a family who's supportive of kids in the community getting together. They're playing sports, they're doing all the right things. And there's room for all kinds of mobility there. There's nobody excluded in that location, which often people with mobility issues just can't participate because it's difficult. So I will just point that out.
Thank you very much. Councillor Georgeson?
I just had a question to staff and maybe to Josh. I wanted to ask about Owens Road across from us here. What did we end up with the sizing of that, narrowing that road when the sidewalk went in on one side?
Probably better to be answered by Deanna. It sounds like I don't know the answer to that. I'd have to come back to you and get those specifics, but you.
Yeah, I believe it's 6.5 travel width, like curb to curb.
Okay, so because that's what I'm not understanding is why we've narrowed some roads in some areas like that. And then when this development comes forward, we have issue with it.
Yeah, so that's one of the things that you asked the question for, and sorry, through the chair.
Yes,
please. Our bylaws from the 285 is from 1995, I believe. Lane widths back then were between 4.5 and 5.5 meters.
Yeah.
Lane widths now have changed significantly. And the rationale behind that is many things, but one of it is the tighter and more sort of bound you feel in a car, the slower you should perceive to go. And that helps with that. So there's a few pieces, and you asked for the motivation why we would go from 20 to 18 or why we would support that in certain situations, which is what we will be putting forward into the new subdivision servicing bylaw. And that's one of the big drivers is we are not looking for big 4.5 and 5.5 lane widths anymore. We're looking for 3.3 for a typical, 3.5 if it's a BC Transit lane as well. And we keep those not tight so you can't safely move, but tight so you are feeling healthily close to other vehicles so that you don't speed and exceed the speeds that we want in those on those streets. So that's what we'll be bringing forward then. And the treatment for this development versus Royal Bay would be no different. The lane widths are anticipated to be the same.
So just a further question, in the cul-de-sacs where this road is being narrowed, how is that any different than street calming or traffic calming? Like, so for example, on Hopwood, how we have that part of the road that juts out and makes it narrow so that, like, how is it any different than that for those specific areas? Like, it's not I don't think they're asking for a whole street to be smaller, but.
Yeah, and through the chair. So the lane widths, we're not suggesting that the lane widths change from an 18-meter right of way to a 16-meter right of way. The lane widths are the same. We'd be looking at probably a smaller buffer, less area to put trees, light standards, things like that. So the 20 to 18 would be the same. The lane widths are not changing. It's just the right of way, so the city-owned property. So it's the treatment inside of that boundary that we're discussing today, and then it's the size of that boundary, but the lane widths are unchanging. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and is it the expectation that there's going to be sidewalks on both sides within a cul-de-sac?
No, one side.
One side?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I guess, yeah. Oh, sorry. Councillor Ward. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to speak to some of the questions that had come up. The question was raised, why is the developer looking at doing this? And they've answered that question. It's largely due to our new bylaw around retaining walls in order to secure enough property to make the home sort of livable by their definition. I mean, definitions vary. I have much less property and it's quite livable, but to make it, we'll call it marketable, and have the adequate amount of parking and things, they're seeking to reduce that so that there is space there. You know, I've taken a look at it. I mean, we're talking about cul-de-sacs here, first of all. So I differentiate a cul-de-sac from a street a great deal. Now you can have a really long cul-de-sac and then the definition gets a little muddy. But in this case, one of the cul-de-sacs in question has a total of 7 homes on it. Do we really need 2 sidewalks in a cul-de-sac with 7 homes? The other one has 15 homes, and some of those would be on the bulb of the cul-de-sac. So they're actually not even on the narrower section. So a single sidewalk, anything above 1.7 meters in width, which is the generally accepted size for people with disability, is fine with me. If it meets the accessibility guidelines, I'm good with that. So I really don't see the issue here. If we were talking a major collector road or somewhere else, I want the space for the 2 sidewalks and maybe look at boulevards and other things. But one of the issues with Royal Bay that we're not talking about is, yes, there's 18-meter roads there, fully functional. In theory, can keep the speed down, although a lot of my neighbors don't get that. There's a lot of cost associated with maintaining those boulevards and things as well. So we need to be cognizant of where we put those in. In this case, I don't see it as being necessary. I think the 18 meters on the regular section of the road is totally viable. We've heard from the city that that's doable. The 16-meter within 2 tiny cul-de-sacs that affects no more than 22 homes, I really don't even know why we're debating it, quite frankly. I think the key question is from the lady in the audience, and I'm sorry I didn't catch your name, was around the accessibility component, to make sure that that someone with disabilities could be picked up. And that's a very valid question. And I think we often come perilously close to overlooking or do overlook accessibility issues. And in this case, I've looked at it. The key difference, I think, between these cul-de-sacs and if I'm correct about where you live, is that a dead end street doesn't allow an effective turnaround for a handy dart. So they won't go in if they have to back out. The cul-de-sacs rectify that. As long as we don't put in traffic islands in the middle that interfere with the radius that's required, we'd be fine. It's a 4.47 meter turning radius required for the polar vehicle that a handy dart is at the current BC Transit standard. So we more than meet that with the way these are laid out. So on the surface, I mean, we can verify that. That could be the direction to the city, is that we confirm that. But at this point, I really see no objection. So I would certainly look to move, I believe it's option 2, where we accept the 18 and the 16 on these streets.
Okay, thank you. I think we want to hear from the proponent before we go through. I'll come back to you for the motion. Does the proponent wish to do a presentation? And if you do, I'm just going to take a 5-minute break here, please. And we'll get you set up and we'll let you do your presentation. So be back in 5, please. Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to re-adjourn the meeting, please. If I can get everybody to take their seats. Just before we have the proponent come up, I just a small minor change here. Didn't realize we had two people from BC Transit that were here earlier and have been waiting. So right after we complete this item, I'm going to actually move the road dedication to BC Hydro or BC Transit road dedication item to 7.5, and then I'll move everything down accordingly. Okay, thank you. If I can get the proponent, please. You have to push that little button there.
Okay. Mayor and council and all the staff and everyone who's kindly come out on this evening, thank you for having me here. My name is Lynn Weir and I'm representing Turnberry Developments, which is our family company. And we are the developers of the Marianne Crescent. We bought this site 2 years ago. It was a stalled site from a previous developer. And we want to make a nice, sought after community. We're asking for the road width numbers 18 and 16 for what we see as decisions that will help build a good community. The map up here on the screen shows the yellow highlighted area is the areas that we're asking for 16-meter road, ROW. The reason why we're doing this is that particular area, we need to have retaining walls. And the retaining wall requirements have changed. And instead of going straight up, they go up, over, up, over, up, over. And that encroaches on the area that you can use for a backyard. It pushes the house farther up. So that affects off-site parking or off the road parking. So 16 meters is what we believe we require to build livable, viable homes on those lots with those retaining walls. The cul-de-sacs, the actual cul-de-sacs are the standard width. They're not smaller. And then the green areas are the 18 meter request. My daughter told me not to say and she's counting them right now. So the city of Colwood has many roads that are 16 meters and 15. Delora Drive has a new section that's 15.3. And on the other side, 16. And I do believe the section that's being proposed to connect the two is being proposed at 15. Hopwood Place, Regency Place, Byzantine, Tyler, these are all 15 meters or 16 meters. The area that we're asking for is quite a bit shorter than any of those streets. And they're not a feeder road. J.E. Anderson, I'm not sure how to go in mine. Is it this one to go to the next? I probably need to count. No, next one. Okay. This J.E. Anderson and Associates, they, I think most of you are familiar with who they are. This is the proposed road section for the 16 meters. And you can see the boulevard, the parking lane, a car travel lane, 2 of them, a 2-meter sidewalk, and then another boulevard. It shows where we can put services and trees. And I believe that that sidewalk exceeds the minimum requirement for wheelchair width. It's our intention to make a neighborhood that people say, I want to live there. We're hoping to make a livable neighborhood that everybody can be proud of. With regards to snow clearing, well, I'm wondering what they do at Hopwood and Regency and Byzantine and Tyler and the other subdivisions that we have completed. I don't know if any of you have been to Latoria Rise. That was 48 homes just off of Latoria, and that was our subdivision. And they have 16-meter roads widths. We haven't ever had a complaint about snow removal there. And we're currently building Latoria Terrace right now. Just sold 2 houses there. And I checked with regards to snow removal, I checked with Environment Canada. Over 30 days, the maximum accumulation is 2.5 inches. I can get it if we're way up north where we get, you know, massive quantities of snow or even Kelowna. I think I'm going to end it there. I have, I don't want to delay any more of your meeting. It's gone on for quite a while. And I know you've got a lot more work and everybody here works very hard. And I'd also like to say, I very much appreciate the efforts from staff and from council and from everyone who wants to make the community a great community. So thank you all.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Any questions for the public? Oh, Councillor Jensen?
Yeah, thank you, Worship. Thank you. I appreciate the candor and the why, answering the question why. And I do understand we've done similar cross sections in several communities. So again, I need to understand why, you know, maybe I'm quite sure we made some mistakes in certain areas or previous councils did. So, but the areas that you mentioned, I'm familiar with, and quite frankly, I agree with you. I don't see a massive problem. So I do love what you have to say there, that it makes those certain properties, especially on that backside, that much better. But did you look at this a different way? And that is, we do get retaining wall variances that come before us. So if the retaining wall is the issue and you came forward and made a similar pitch that, look, rather than, you know, I understand it goes up 3 feet, it goes in 3 feet, it goes up 3 feet, it goes in 3 feet, but we got lots of examples where that's been, we varied from that particular example, although it is a sort of a best case. But my question is specific. Those lots at the back there, you heard some concerns about blasting. Will this adjustment help mitigate some of the blasting for some of those properties along that side?
I don't know the answer to that question, so I won't answer it. But I can look into it for you. But I'm not going to give information that
No, that's fair, but you heard the concern, so I'm just wondering if there's a relationship.
There will be blasting on the site. That's unfortunately a fact of developing with this type of land.
Sure. There's a lot of rock on this island. I get it. So I guess that's about the only question I have. Thank you, Your Worship.
Councillor Day, please.
Thank you. One of the concerns that I have, one of the mistakes that I've seen that we have made is everybody likes to have birthday parties and gatherings every so often. And it can be really challenging, especially where you have cul-de-sacs. You have an awful lot of properties and not so much roadway leading up to them. So have you planned for parking with your 16-meter narrowings?
The roadway section that we showed you has parking on one side of the road. And our plans are to make sure, just like we did at Latoria Rise and Latoria Terrace, that there is a garage, driveway, and on-site parking. I can't say that we'll be able to accommodate everyone who has a party. And I don't know a neighborhood that does, but, you know, be friends with your neighbors.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Seeing no other questions. Who made the motion before? Oh, yeah. Okay. Council Ward, do you want to make your motion then?
Someone else wants to.
Oh, I'm popping up all over. Councillor Jordison.
I'll make a motion. Have to find it. I'm sorry. Sorry. Is it on the presentation? Sorry. I will make a motion to for option 2 that the development variance permit request to reduce the required road right-of-way width from 20 meters to 18 meters along the main roads, Marianne Crescent extension be granted, and that the development variance permit request to reduce the required road right-of-way width from 20 meters to 16 for the cul-de-sac entrances be granted.
Okay, got it. Get that okay, Marcy? And do I have a second? Do I have a seconder? Okay, Councillor Olson. And I'll open up for discussion. Councillor Day.
Thank you. I will have to oppose this. I believe that street trees are really important. I think it's short-sighted for us to take the smaller road dedication than what staff have suggested is acceptable. They have said they could work with the 18 meters with potentially requiring right-of-ways. Right-of-ways tend to be somewhat problematic later on when people have forgotten that they're actually not part of their yard, but they can be used. But I don't support the 16 meters for the cul-de-sacs. I know that there will be sidewalks on one side, but I think that we need more room for more green infrastructure. In this time of climate change, we're going to have a hard enough time getting trees to grow in the small spaces that we have for them.
Thank you. Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I suppose I'm living proof that you can teach an old dog new tricks, or that you can change your mind anyway. I'm absolutely fine with reducing on the main road area from 20 to 18. I was leaning towards the 16 in the cul-de-sacs, but now I question how significant an impact is it to go to 18 in the cul-de-sac area. I mean, we're talking, you know, imperial measurement 3 feet on either side of the road. And the reason I look at it is that historically, and I think Councillor Jansen made a good point, and I've been one to needle previous councils for this, is that just because it exists doesn't mean it was right. We've made mistakes in the past. I mean, not us, previous councils, of course, but there are certainly a few areas where, you know, you look at it, you think, okay, this could have been done better. And maybe this is one of those moments where if we preserve the space now, we don't have to pay exorbitant costs down the road to find that. And I look to a lot of examples, Souk Road and other places where we're looking at our infrastructure needs, and there's a cost associated with trying to claw back things. So, you know, again, a meter either side, 3 feet either side. I mean, maybe the you know, the applicant can provide some insight, but I find it, and I'm not a real estate expert, but I find it hard to think that much space on either side would be that material to the, you know, the design elements of a home with the views that they would have and you know, the space and such. So you know, if there's an answer to that, great, but if not, I think I'm leaning towards 18 across the board. So I'll wait and see discussion on this particular motion before looking for any amendment or anything else.
Okay. Councillor Olson.
I just wanted to be clear that I'm in support of option 2. And I, with all due respect, I am also a lover of trees, but the green infrastructure, I have spent a lot of time up on that property with the owner's position or permission prior to it being purchased. I've spent a lot of time up there, and there is not a lot growing up there. There's a lot of broom. There's a lot of shrubs, maybe the odd little pine tree that, you know, you could probably use for a Christmas tree that just doesn't grow anymore. So I think that growing trees up there is going to be a challenge. I mean, it's a mountaintop with amazing views, but I just can't see, you know, anything really growing up there aside from broom or anything invasive. So I'm in support of the option 2. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to give this opportunity to the proponent. If you want to answer, if you can answer Councillor Ward's question, you know, it's just 3 feet on both sides where it goes down to 16. Do you have a response to that? I'll give you that opportunity.
Could you repeat the question, please?
Yeah, I can do it. So the proponent was, Councillor Ward was just asking that he found it hard to believe that, you know, we couldn't find another 3 feet on both sides where it goes down to 16 meters. Because 16 instead of, you know, because it's 18 meters is he was in favor of having it 18 meters. So it's another 2 meters, approximately 6 feet, just over 6 feet. And he was just asking, you know, it's just 3 feet on both sides. So he was trying to understand if you had a response to that. I mean, is there a reason? Like, I guess that's whatever you said before wasn't satisfactory to him.
The word just is interesting. I could say it's just 3 feet of the road. We've had engineers work on this extensively. If there was a better way, we'd be here with it. Because every time we have to go through this process, it takes time and money. It's not a complaint, it's a fact. So if there was a better way to make, I mean, I'd love to give you, you know, 30 meter roads, parking everywhere, sidewalks everywhere. We have to, you know, we've got the groceries, we've got to make the meal. And we're trying the best we can to satisfy everyone. And it will be an issue if we can't get the 16 meter in those sections. We'll have to think about it, what we can possibly do and what can be built there. There will be some issues with some of the lots that I think Yasmin is very familiar with. And I'm sorry, but it is problematic. It means that we might lose homes, and it means they might not get built there. And I can't give you that as a definite answer, but truly we have had engineers work on this extensively. And I'm sorry, I'm not an engineer, so I can't give you their exact reasoning other than what I told you tonight.
That's fair enough then. Thank you very much. Councillor Georgeson.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess I just have some further questions. I'm wondering if we need to, if the sidewalks need to be a full 2 meters and if the buffer needs to be 2.5 meters. If there can be a variance of somewhat with those.
Josh. Through the chair. The short answer is no. We could definitely do variances to those. It would just not be in accordance with the active transportation network plan, which we've been
Transportation plan that's not approved. So
given direction from council to use for planning purposes. So that's the document we use.
this is why I have issue with this plan. Because I don't think this gold standard should be forced into neighborhoods like this. And this is, we need homes. We need to continue building homes. And we're arguing about, a couple feet of roadway. It just seems ridiculous. I don't know what else to say. I just, yeah.
Thank you very much.
If I may.
Oh, please go ahead.
Through the chair again, we can still achieve a 2 meter sidewalk with 16 meters. There's many options. The hesitancy from an engineering's perspective is long-term planning and the unknowns. So we've talked a little bit about snow clearing. Again, not a huge issue in Victoria today. We don't know what climate change is going to do. Probably going to reduce that, but it could change the other way. At times when we do get snow, where that goes, it's a question. We can do statutory right of ways for boxes. We can get creative and probably with the applicant, I assume as well. So I would say that the biggest hesitancy from engineering's perspective is we don't want to short sight the city. So we've come forward to council to say we support 18. We feel like it's responsible long-term planning. We can achieve the goals of what we think council wants tonight or today. 16, we have some concerns with that relative to the unknowns of what tomorrow holds. So that's why we put it forward to you. But the 2 meter sidewalk is not necessarily what shuts this down. And we could definitely look at narrowing that and gain a 0.5 meter, 0.3 if need be.
Thank you very much, George. Okay, Councillor Georges.
Okay, so about that, you just said that you could maybe look at narrowing the sidewalks. What about emergency vehicles? Is there an issue with emergency vehicles in and out? Is there, does the chief want to speak to that? Is it?
It's not an issue.
Is it
Just
on,
relative
like,
to the, sorry, through the chair, relative to the sidewalk width or just the?
sorry,
lane?
the roadway width?
No.
Is it?
Chief, we haven't seen you in a long time.
To answer your question directly, the 6 meter roads provided parking with the way they designed the parking, we have no concern with.
Okay. Thank you.
And Councillor Jensen, last time.
Yeah, thank you, your worship. I promise. This is it. I find that, I think I made some strong statements initially, but I find that I'm persuaded by some of the comments from Mr. Bayless, but also from the proponent who I thank. And if this is a difference of another home and another family in our community, well, I'm going to be in favor of erring on the side of another family moving to the community. So I publicly and open-heartedly retract some of my previous comments, and I think I'm inclined to support this motion as presented. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. At this point in time, I'm going to call the question, but first, can you just please read the motion just so that everyone remembers what they're voting on?
Thank you, your worship. So that is that development variance permit DBP 0002 request to reduce the required road right-of-way width from 20 meters to 18 meters along the main roads, Marianne Crescent Extension be granted. And that development variance permit DVP 0002 request to reduce the required right-of-way from width from 2 meters to 16 meters for the cul-de-sac entrances be granted.
Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor? And opposed? Just Councillor Day. And the motion carries. Thank you very much. Yeah, now we're gonna go to BC Transit. And I understand Josh, you're presenting, I believe.
Thank you, Your Worship. Not a presentation as such, just a clarification. When this came off the consent agenda, I thought it worth giving a little bit of context. So the intent tonight was really just to bring forward a land ask relative to BC Transit's project in our community. This portion of land, it's two small pieces on West Shore Parks and Rec land that they have already agreed to in principle, and now it's just more of a formality to get the partners in West Shore Parks and Rec on board. The ask itself is quite small. This isn't necessarily an opportunity to bring forward the project in its entirety and talk about the treatments and the rest. We actually got approval on that from council back in 2021, March. So staff have been working in good faith with BC Transit on this project for the better part of 2 years now, over 2 years now. So the intent tonight is we've gone a long ways. Tyson and Chelsea can speak to this more, but they're trying to go to tender to get this project actually moving. And part of that is these land acquisition pieces, both for permission to construct and also for ownership. So I just wanted to give that context ahead of time. And then they're also here, both representatives from BC Transit, to speak to any further questions you may have. But the intent was this to be a little bit more simple and just a land conversation relative to those two pieces with West Shore Parks and Rec. So I hope that context helps.
Okay, thank you very much. Great summary. I'll open it up for questions then. Councillor Day.
Thank you. So the project that's before us tonight here, are we losing the right-hand turning lane onto Souk Road as a result?
Sorry, I think we're here from BC Transit. Councillor Day, you were referring.
Sorry, we can't hear you very well. You're just very quiet.
Okay, can you hear me any better? Testing, testing.
That's better. I can hear you
better. Okay, I'm a very loud person, so I'll even speak up even more in my house. Can you hear me, Councillor Day?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Are you referring to going, I guess it would be northbound, coming down the Colwood strip?
Ocean
across that-
Boulevard to turn right on Island Highway?
So yes, the right-hand turn lane, as you can see, would be removed for the drawing. So yes, if you would come up and have to wait at the light, you would not have that opportunity to make that right-hand turn. You are reading correctly.
That you're aware that that is an area with significant queuing at the moment?
Yeah, we've taken, like Gus says, over the last 2 years, we've looked at this heavily and to allow for us to put in the fast track waiting buses. Yeah, we've examined that.
I don't think I followed what you're saying. You're exempting it from what?
Sorry, not accepting. We do know that there is, we don't have any concern about the, I guess, backflow as you're talking about, as people are queuing in through the intersection at this point. We don't see a concern there from our traffic studies.
Okay, and you're proposing gates at West Shore Parks and Rec. So when the queue is beyond the gate, nobody's going to be able to turn into the road to the access West Shore Parks and Rec anyways.
So we are proposing that. West Shore Parks and Rec has requested that on behalf of the project. They have people that are speeding or taking that as a shortcut. And it will not be gates anymore. It will be ballards put in place. They're hoping to deter people from using that as a shortcut. And again, have asked for that to be part of the project. We've worked extensively with them. And it's my understanding that they will put them in place as required through an operational readiness, day to day as needed. So it won't be gates, but it will be ballards now, as the gates were too large and kind of cumbersome to lead over. So yeah.
Okay, and also there is cycling and a bus stop location immediately, I guess where the green area is that you're receiving or that Colwood is receiving from West Shore Parks and Rec. That is your high frequency transit stop right there. The rest of your documentation talks about the queue jumping lane at the intersection. And I'm just wondering if that is part of tonight's agenda item to add the queue jumping lane at the intersection of Ocean Boulevard. So the buses turn at Goldstream and they come down the hill to Ocean Boulevard. They would pull into the queue jumping lane there, except that on the other side of that intersection, they're going to pull into the transit stop to either drop off or pick up passengers. And that queue jumping lane is going to get them in front of about 5 cars or whatever, but they will have had to be in a lane full of traffic at high peak hours. So from Goldstream to Ocean Boulevard in the AM peak, those lanes are completely full because the light at Goldstream and Souk Road is full. So I'm trying to explain that the queue jumping lane, if you're planning to put it in, it would not be effective in that location.
Fair comment. I would take that back. I don't have any comment to say. We've done the data, we've researched it. It will benefit us on our rapid bus lines to queue jump when required. If people ring the bell, we would pull in and drop people off or pick people up if they were there. If not, the bus would keep going.
So I drive the corridor frequently. My question was, is that queue jumping lane at that location a part of the proposal here tonight?
It's part of the overall project, yes. Am I missing something? Like this is a larger project. This whole intersection is being redeveloped to benefit the queue jumping lanes at the lights. There will be a shelter upgrade included. And for us to provide the queue jump lane, we require the land that we are talking about tonight, which has gone out to all of the municipalities to part of one of you.
It's still very, very hard to hear you, but I guess I would have expected to know definitively exactly what you're doing rather than just have a very poor diagram. I don't want to make traffic worse in this area. It is completely congested. I want to facilitate transit, but if there isn't a bus lane from Goldstream to Ocean Boulevard, the queue jumping lane will not accomplish your goal. Not in peak hours.
Okay, thank you very much for your time.
Okay, I don't know what to say. I feel like you don't know what the project is that you're asking me to approve.
We're not actually in the project. The motion is, I can tell you exactly what the motion is, that the mayor and the corporate officer be authorized to sign the agreement between BC Transit and West Shore Parks and Rec member municipalities to dedicate a portion of lands allocated at Ocean Boulevard Island Highway as road according to section 107 of the Land Title Act to support the rapid bus line. That's what the motion is.
Yeah, I see that is, I've read the motion,
Yeah,
but I don't know what are you going to sign an agreement to do? Are you going to run this through the model, have any idea what the impacts are going to be, or we're just going to blindly follow somebody who doesn't tell us what they're doing?
But that's not the motion.
It's
I
to
don't
sign
understand
an
where you're coming from right now, so that's what I'm confused about.
Well, where I'm coming from is if the proposal, which is before us, with a very lengthy valuation for the property that says they want to put in a queue jumping lane and realign the roadway, the queue jumping lane
But we've,
is not going to work.
we've already passed that concert date back in March of 2021.
Yeah, we've had lots of poor decisions at the table. That doesn't mean we should carry on when we see what the problems are with them.
And there's a different forum to do that, not this particular one right here.
Oh, I would really love to know what the forum is.
It's not this one. Councillor Jensen?
Yeah, thank you, your worship. We have visited this in the past, and my recollection is that this land dedication, this intersection improvement has everything to do with the future bus lanes, not the current queue jumping. So this is about achieving a result at that intersection for the future when they do wrap around and come back with the fifth bus. That's my recollection. I believe that's the intent here. As your representative and the community's representative to West Shore Parks and Rec, we strongly support this. We have issues of traffic screaming around the back of the rec center. It's unacceptable. And so the works for bollards or barricades, whatever is been decided there, is going to happen in concert with all this. And it's an opportunity for the rec center to save some money while this work is being undertaken. I'm strongly in support of this. And quite frankly, the loss of the right turn queue lane, I'm sorry if anyone's ever tried to turn right there in the morning anyways, it's a waste of time. So you have to sit there and wait for the light to change or, try and creep around the corner. It's near impossible anyways till the light cycle changes in your favor. So I am in support of this. The West Shore Parks and Rec is in support of this, and I would love to see us get to a vote here and move on. Thank you, your worship.
Thank you very much. Councillor Grove?
Oh, thank you. Mr. Mayor, I was just wondering if I could make a motion to accept this recommendation. Can I do that? No.
I'll come back to you in a second.
Thank you.
I'll just let Councillor Ward pipe in first.
Sure. I didn't want to leave Councillor Day sort of hanging out there on her own. I think she's made some really valid points. And I know this may have been debated by a previous council, but I sympathize. I don't care. The last mayor didn't listen to anybody in this community. So really, I don't care what the previous council did or what they approved or not. What I do care about is that blocking that right turn lane, I mean, that's 1,600 cars a day right now that won't have a place to go. They're going to back right up. So I just want council to know that as we look at these sort of piecemeal things that came along from various agreements between people who aren't at the table anymore, you're going to have 1,600 commuters a day now going, well, I can't go the Lagoon way because that's even worse than it ever was. So now I need to go down Machosen Road. So when I come calling at the table to say, let's make Machosen Road a 4-lane road, there's going to be 1,600 people who might be more inclined to agree that that's the route to take. So I'm not going to oppose it because I think the greater good of the region is to put rapid bus lines in the absence of the political will to do what's right and put light rail in. So I will, stand aside while we push this forward. But again, to me, it's a case of, okay, it sounds great on paper, but we're going to be sitting here at some point, or the next group of people is going to be sitting here at some point and going, wow, do we now need to just block Lagoon Road off because there's no way to go that way at all, which is logical in some ways too. But like, we're just looking at the same issues and creating micro kind of issues in different spots. And then all of a sudden a big macro issue where a main commuting route gets essentially shut down. There's going to be a firestorm to come. So just throw that out there. So
Yeah.
that'll come up when time comes to talk about this.
It's an issue that I think that could be put onto the infrastructure committee. Honestly, that's the way to tackle this right now. Because I'm still going back to what the motion is. I don't want to go away from that focus because we're just pulled ourselves off and the reason why I believe the people that can't really answer the questions on this right now aren't the people that we should be taking this up with, to tell you the truth. That's how I see it. I mean, I'd love to see our own traffic model working in there too. So, we have this opportunity. So I wasn't being, so what, we've approved it, but the whole thing is that in principle, we've approved what the motion is here. That's what the point I'm trying to make right now. Okay, okay, so I have David Grove that has our Councillor Grove who has moved it. Can I get a seconder, please? Okay. And, sorry, did you get that? That's Councillor Jordison, second, sorry. Thought you were looking right at her. Call the question. All those in favor? And those opposed? Okay. Councillor Day opposed. Motion carries. Thank you very much, BC Transit, for joining us. So this is the Souk Road corridor. It's you, Josh. You're going to do the presentation. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Sorry to disappoint you. I wanted to thank you all for the opportunity to bring forward the Souk Road corridor study. John wasn't able to join us tonight, so I'll be handing it over to Dan here shortly in his stead. Even though we previously received direction from council for a 30-meter right-of-way on Souk Road, I believe that was May 9th of 2022, we still wanted to add some context in this corridor study around a smaller ask and a larger ask. So you'll see that in that report, or you will have when you read it. A couple other additions to speak to today. We've got a section on roundabouts and treatments relative to roundabouts. We've also got a little bit of a flavor from the recently created Colwood model, like the traffic model that you guys have seen recently. That's also been filtered in. Yeah, so without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Dan, and then the two of us can answer questions after he's gone through his presentation. Sure, great. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Joshua. I appreciate the intro, and good evening, Mayor and Council. Great to be here again. I'm Dan Casey, transportation consultant with Urban Systems based in Victoria, and we've been the consulting team supporting the city over the past couple of years on the Souk Road corridor study and a handful of other corridor studies as well. So I'm here tonight to provide a high-level overview of some of the key findings from the report you have in your agenda package. Our hope is that we can focus in and ultimately come to a conclusion on a preferred cross-section, typical cross-section for the length of Souk Road. So just to recap, we're talking about the section of Souk Road specifically between Veterans Memorial Parkway in the west or the south, we'll call it the west, and Goldstream Avenue in the east. Represents almost 3 kilometers of that corridor. It's classified as an arterial road. It's your second busiest street in the entire municipality behind Veterans Memorial Parkway. Includes 5 different traffic signals and 1 pedestrian half signal, and there's upwards of 9 transit routes that operate along this corridor. Visual on the left is showing the 5 signalized intersection locations. Visual on the right is important. For the discussion tonight, it's a series of takeoffs on the existing right-of-way width. So that's the width of the property that the street sits within. It varies considerably over the course of the corridor. On the lower end, it's as narrow as 20 meters. We see some of the narrower sections in front of the Royal Roads frontage. And on its widest segments, it's up reaching 30 meters in width. We do see most typically widths in the range of about 24 to 27 meters. So please do keep those numbers in mind as we start to discuss some of these options. A little bit of background and direction that's provided from the Transportation Master Plan. So the Transportation Master Plan is from 2014, and we know that we're going to sort of start moving forward on updates to that document to kind of better reflect some of the planning work that's been done over the past few years and to make sure we're aligned with some of the city's policy and strategy directions. But the TMP from 2014 talks about 4 travel lanes, the most of the length of the corridor. It does identify 2 travel lanes for the section west of Machosen Road, so generally between Machosen Road and Veterans Memorial Parkway, reflecting the current number of travel lanes in place. It talks about sidewalks at 2 meters wide. It talks about buffered bike lanes of 1.8 meters. Now, in 2014, buffered bike lanes were sort of an up-to-date and best practice. We know now that with provincial guidance in place and some of the work that's been done through the active transportation network plan on major roads like this, generally, we're looking for a more protected and safe and comfortable cycling treatment. The TMP also identifies this corridor as part of the frequent transit. Other pieces of guidance, there's been work done by BC Transit on this section of Souk Road, which talked to opportunities to get dedicated bus lanes on the stretch of road. There's also the more recent work on the active transportation network plan, which identifies sidewalks both sides of the street. It identifies protected bike lanes rather than the previously contemplated buffered bike lanes. And it speaks to some of the design guidelines that are now in place at a provincial level in terms of best practice for both cycling and pedestrian infrastructure. So in considering cross-section options for this section of Souk Road, you'll recall it was about 1.5 years ago we were here and we were speaking specifically to 4 cross-section options. We're back here today. We heard some of the discussion from that session over 1 year ago. We're back here today with 6 different options. The cross-section options in front of you represent different total right-of-way widths. Most reflect the 30-meter right-of-way width that was confirmed through that previous council session. We also want to introduce others that utilize a narrower and a wider right-of-way width. And then what you'll notice as we work through each of these options are the differing levels of service and the differing design treatments for the various activities and travel modes that happen through the corridor. So you'll notice different number of travel lanes or different traffic accommodation. You'll notice the presence of bus lanes and differing concepts for that. You'll notice a differing level of cycling facility design. You'll notice sidewalks. Sidewalks are integral to all options, but you will notice some difference. And you'll also notice boulevards have been with street trees have been showing in all options, but still with some difference between the various options. In the summary report that's in your agenda package, there's for each of the 6 cross-section options, there's been a series of evaluation criteria that have been applied. And so those are on the screen in front of us. Maybe won't go through them in detail, but the idea is that in the report, we've tried to help highlight the advantages and disadvantages of each option, so we really can start to understand the selection of a particular option might benefit more in a certain area versus another in a different area. So some of the evaluation criteria are around walking and cycling comfort and safety, transit and traffic performance, capital and maintenance costs, opportunities for placemaking and beautification, and the level of impact and ease of implementation of each of these options. And those are all summarized in a fair bit of detail in the summary report. So to move into the 6 options, they're just lettered from option A to option F. I'll work through each and try to highlight the key design features and key advantages and disadvantages of each. So option A is the cross-section that's shown on the screen in front of us. It represents a 26-meter right-of-way. This was sort of one of our starting points when we undertook this work, is a reduced right-of-way width from otherwise what these other options might be showing. This option includes, importantly, only 2 travel lanes, where for most of the corridor, there's 4 in place today. It does include the addition of dedicated bus lanes, boulevard, protected bike lane, and sidewalk. But we've done a series of traffic analyses for this corridor work. We've since done more of that as part of the traffic modeling work. And we really feel strongly like the impact to traffic of this option is significant, and this would not be the right option to pursue. Option B, the cross-section in front of us represents a 30-meter right-of-way width. It accommodates 2 travel lanes in each direction, so 4 travel lanes in total, reflecting generally what's on most of the corridor today. It also includes the addition of an inbound, so a AM peak or an AM dedicated bus lane that'll benefit bus traffic in the AM, allow them to work around areas of queuing and delay. Generally, this option does an excellent job of providing wider sidewalks and boulevards, protected bike lanes, and more or less retains the traffic performance capacity that's in place today. I think perhaps the biggest drawback is we're seeing the dedicated bus lane only in the one direction, and we're not gaining that benefit in the opposing direction. Option C is the bus
Sorry,
lane.
Dan, would you prefer us to wait for our questions or would you like us to ask them as you go along?
Honestly, you can choose.
Okay, let's, so people don't forget, because we're like elephants here, we forget. Councillor Day, I'm gonna let people ask questions here. Councillor Day.
I just want to know where you're assuming people with mobility devices would be expected to fit. Each of your scenarios shows cyclists, pedestrians, cars, and buses, but none of them show mobility devices, scooters.
So great question. And this would apply across all the options. Generally, things like motorized wheelchairs or regular wheelchairs, people using mobility devices in support fashion like that would occur on the sidewalks. Micro mobility devices, e-bicycles, some of the kick scooters and things we're seeing now, the expectation is they wouldn't operate on the sidewalk and they'd utilize cycling facilities.
And you differentiate based on the equipment, not based on speed, or?
So that is all regulated actually at the provincial level. And so we wouldn't be signing or designating in any of these options out in the field. They would, based on the design and the identification of the facilities and the spaces, it would actually be at the provincial level that is regulated. It's enforceable at the local level.
Thank you.
Councillor Jordison.
Thank you, Mayor. Hi, Dan. My question is about accessible people with disabilities trying to access the bus. So currently what I'm seeing here is like, where is the bus pulling over in these lanes?
So in each, you'll notice some difference between the cross sections, but in the options that have dedicated bus lanes, the bus stops would be at the curb in the lane.
So even though we have reports that say that people that are blind, for example, you want them to cross in front of the bike lane to get to the green area to catch the bus?
Yeah, we're still kind of waiting for that provincial level guidance on best practice and approach to doing that. If we're not able to determine a configuration that is deemed to be acceptable, there is the opportunity to reconfigure, keep the basic components, but reconfigure to avoid that challenge.
So I have concerns with it. I think like the green space should be up against the sidewalk and the bus lane should be on the other side of that or something. And the people that are not the bus lane, the bike lane, the people that drive the bikes, they have the sight. They should be the ones stopping. They should be stopping when a bus pulls in and waiting until the bus pulls back out. So I just think this design is it's missing accessibility standards. Thanks.
Councillor Ward.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to wait till we get to option F. I didn't know we were
Okay.
Preempting.
So I just have two questions myself. So, and they're 40,000 feet, believe it or not. The one that really caught me off guard, I never noticed this before. I never noticed that the cross section, the lanes on the inner are wider than the outer. Is that a mistake or is that done on purpose? Like, I would think the trucks are normally in buses are in the right hand, the outer lanes, right? So they would be wider, but I just noticed that on one of the slides. I went, I didn't notice that before.
So I guess quick response, and the option that's on the screen in front of us, the wider lane has been put at the curb because that's the bus lane, and basically every vehicle that will use that lane is a bus and they're wide. Hence the modest increase in width.
Yeah, but your one diagram you showed in front, the outer lanes of what I call outer, inner, outer, the ones the buses are in are the narrow ones.
Okay.
I don't know if you picked that up though.
I'd have to go back. and
I was
look.
surprised when I saw that. I just,
Yeah.
and I had to look twice. But my second question, and more importantly, every one of these options is, so where does it stop? Because Colwood ends halfway down that hill. So is the idea sort of to bring it into the, because it's a two, you're down to what, the 4 lanes on the bridge. So I can understand that there's going to be a lot of, that's going to be the next choke point. But does it sort of, are we doing this regionally and we're going down to the bridge? And is that what we're doing here? Because I'm not too sure.
Yeah.
Are we creating, we can have these great plans, but a View Royal doesn't have this cross section where, you know, just after you get past the rec center, you go like that, right? So can you answer that question?
Partially, I think, and I think it's a really good question. When we started this work, it was to pick up on the rapid bus treatment that was being contemplated through View Royal into Colwood, and then to proceed west along Goldstream into Langford. And so this section of Souk Road was being viewed as sort of the next logical step of implementation of potentially of dedicated transit facilities into Colwood and into South Colwood. Hence sort of the study area that's been chosen for this work. Could and should this proceed further east or north into View Royal and beyond? I mean, ideally, yes, if we're to realize the full benefits of the dedicated transit provision and the sort of through flow of traffic that we're sort of trying to get toward in this section. Obviously, you know, View Royal will be doing its own planning over time. I think a lot of that is timelines too. I think the work that was done here primarily was to establish and be comfortable with the right of way that's necessary long term to build what we view to be the long-term cross section here. The same sort of visioning and sort of long-term planning work could be done further along the corridor at a future point in time. But I think that sort of primarily the first step in the exercise, and Joshua alluded to this, was establishing that 30 meters as our preferred width, because development is happening now where the right of way that's realized is related to sites and buildings that might not redevelop for 30, 50, 100 years.
No, I agree. I mean, there's no, but it just always strikes me wrong. Like, it's just something that says, you know, are we going to spend millions of dollars to have this beautiful cross section only just to come up into View Royal and they change it, have a different direction? And that's always concerned me. So it's almost like, I don't know what the answer is. It's almost like we have to have like a regional look at this, right? And because it just seems spend millions of dollars just to move a problem further down the road. So that just make that comment. Thank you. Go ahead, please. Oh, sorry. Okay. Councillor Jorgensen, you want to? Okay, go ahead.
I don't know if this is the appropriate time, but I would actually like to defer this to the infrastructure committee. And like, I just think there's huge inaccuracies in what we think the plan should be, and none of these are it. I don't know.
Yeah, so that would be it for, yeah. Yeah. Refer it. Yeah, we're gonna refer it. You want to make the motion to refer?
I'd like to make the motion to defer it.
Refer.
Yeah, refer it, sorry.
No, but you could, no, because they're asking us for a decision for one of the options. Okay. Yes, go ahead. You're on the floor. Councillor Jensen with the point of order.
Thank you. There's no discussion, I don't believe, after a referral, is there? Okay, so maybe we can get everybody's questions out before we make a motion to refer, because I too have some thoughts along the same lines. Thank you.
No, that's fair. That is absolutely fair. So I'll come back. I'll circle back to you. Councillor Ward. So there's no,
Yeah,
no motion on the floor.
No, I appreciate that. I don't want to lose the opportunity to talk about this and refer it to a committee of unelected people, and I get no say until it comes back before council. So I think I made my feelings pretty clear on that. We haven't got to where I want to go yet, but I do agree with some of the points that Councillor Jordison is making, that, you know, the options you've prepared, I think, are great, but they're based on the active transportation network plan, the master plan, plans that we know, and you've probably heard it, folks at this table don't all agree on. So when I skip forward, and maybe we could do this, can we go to option F really quickly? Would you mind? This is not recommended because obviously it's the Taj Mahal of things. If I'm maybe oversimplifying it, but 34 meters, right? But let's stop and look at it for a second and consider the long-term future of transportation in the community. You've got sidewalks, you've got protected bike lanes, you've got dedicated bus lanes, and you don't lose the traffic capability. But my concern is that this gets not recommended because it's based on a plan that not everyone at this table agrees on, but yet it could be the option. So I did the quick math and I look at this and see, okay, bike lanes are at 1.8 meters. City of Victoria is probably the gold standard around here in bike lanes, love them or hate them. They're at 1.6. So let's reduce the bike lanes to 1.6 meters, right? So you have a savings there. Reduce the sidewalks, which are currently at a Taj Mahal level 2.5 meter, bring those down to 2 meters, even. A reasonable, still very wide, a very accessible size. Now you've saved another significant chunk there. Now here's where it gets interesting. So instead of these green buffers, which I like, but when we consider this as a true transit corridor with high moving vehicles, think of the long-term expense. Think of what it costs us right now when we do the service review just to maintain the existing service and all the boulevards and everything that we built in Royal Bay that look beautiful. It's all great, but it costs a bloody fortune. And this is going to cost us a fortune all the way down Soup Road. If you start pulling that out, you've got 2 meter planting zones on either side. You take out an additional 4 meters, right? So then we look at the protective barrier between the buses and the bike lane. You know, there's a local company that does a, well, almost a half meter, 45 centimeter wide by 45 centimeter high concrete barrier that you can lock in. It's an interlocking system. You could build a half meter wide fixed concrete barrier there with bollards all the way down. Like there's a lot of options you could do that would reduce the Taj Mahal plan down from the 34 meters ineffective to secure the land plan to 30 meters. The same as what we're talking about with all of the lesser plans. So to me, when we start looking at the transportation master plan and the active transportation network plan, if we're prepared to think beyond that and be flexible, we can have our cake and eat it too. Done the math, and that's just in 5 minutes sitting there hammering it out. Well, okay, it took a little longer, but we can do the 30 meters, the same cost in terms of securing right away as all of the other plans, and quite literally have everything. And my concern is that we forward this to a committee, they just look this over, they don't have the background, you know, and you've got competing interests. I see it on some of the other committees. You get a wide variety of viewpoints. They take a look at this plan, they come back, well, all they've got to work with is the active transportation plan and the master plan, and they go, well, these weren't recommended, so we're going with option B or whatever it is. I won't support it, but I also don't support just pushing it off. We were the ones elected to deal with it. This is too serious to throw out to a random group of residents who we don't even know who they are yet. So, I mean, if we want to refer it, fine, I won't support it, but I also view that there are other plans other than these. And it's not to criticize what you've got. You've done, you know, what you have to do with and as Josh has, with the guidance from council was use that plan right now moving forward. You've got to base it on something. But we need to start looking at, okay, shifting that. Okay, we don't believe in it, change it, and then allow some flexibility so the expert can come forward and go, okay, knowing those terms, I can give you a 30 meter system that has it all. I think we can do better. Anyway, that's my rant.
Thanks very much. Councillor Jensen.
Thank you, Worship. I love what's here in many ways, and quite frankly, I like bits and pieces of each one of them. And but there isn't one I can completely and wholeheartedly get behind for some of the points that my peers have raised. I do have a couple of thoughts. So The Active Transportation Committee is a committee full of cycling enthusiasts who would have a lot to say on a lot of this stuff. This hasn't been to that committee yet. And despite, I mean, I think it behooves us to hear what these committees that we've struck have to say on these items. Otherwise, what's the point? Let's just get to a committee of the whole then and do it ourselves. So that's my first point. When you put up your map here and said that we're compressed at several locations, somewhere 24 to 27 meters, I think is about the narrowest portion there. Well, I flipped through here to find out which one fits with that, and really it's the 26 meter that only where we lose 2 lanes of traffic, which we'll never hear the end of it, and I would never support that. So, you know, the 30 meter, the 34 meter, again, that's, I would refer to it as a Cadillac option, and will require a lot of land acquisition, of which I'm sure that we're going to be having to purchase along the way. So yeah, I was looking for an option G, but there isn't quite one there that kind of meshes them all together. And without some feedback, and maybe Mr. Bayless has something in this regard, but I mean, are we in discussions with Langford and View Royal on this? Is there congruity at all? Or, you know, are we a decade ahead of them, and then why are we bothering? Because there might be flying cars, you know, like, yes. I would love some feedback from Mr. Bayless on that specific portion.
Through the chair, please. Councillor Jansen, yeah, I would say our conversations with View Royal are quite strong in the corridor. We're working with them closely, especially through this BC Transit project that goes through both our municipalities. So we're chatting with them quite often. I think Dan kind of said it best. We're looking for master planning, and it sounds like we need some better guidance to get there. But with that, if we were first at the table, we would share with them and show our intent. I think it can go either way. We can be the leaders in that from a staff level and share. It could be a CAO led, a mayor led, whatever that ends up being.
But with the regional transportation proposal through the CRD might change our view on all this stuff, and it might be cost at that authority. So I just wonder if we're putting the cart before the horse here and doing a bunch of work, which we might find needs undoing down the road here. Now, in and of itself, if you're asking me to look at how much road width we need along there, I mean, obviously, I think 30 meters is probably going to be at least a minimum to achieve what it is that I think we're trying to achieve as a community, for sure. What that looks like and some of the ideas that Councillor Ward proposed, you know, we can discuss later. But in and of itself, I mean, I think 34 meters is a bridge too far, quite frankly. I think I said that once already tonight, but 30 meters is probably a minimum, and anything less than that, I don't think we're, I mean, I would be interested in, but I do want to have a good handle on what the acquisition looks like and where we're compressed and what the purchase, if necessary, on the part of the community, and where transit fits in, where this regional authority fits in. So a lot of questions. Thank you so much. And thank you for indulging me, Mr. B.
Thank you. There are some future slides on the land ask, so I won't steal Dan's thunder. But
Councillor Day.
Thank you. I just want to remind everybody that the infrastructure committee, one of the, what makes me feel strongly about that committee is the fact that it's going to be looking at everything that's in a roadway, including sewer and water. And that's really important. I keep saying it. I've been around the block here for a while, but one of my long-term commitments was with water. And one of the issues that came forward was that we were having some difficulties communicating between CRD Water and local municipalities who just finished up their brand new fabulous road idea that they just got done, only to find out that it was being torn up 2 years later. So we really want to avoid costly mistakes, and we really need to engage, and we have to actively work pretty damn hard to engage our community, because you know what the first thing people would be yelling about for option F, which was described as the every bell and whistle option, except there is no turning lanes in down the center. And that is a big issue in our community where we have a lot of offset little intersections, and maybe those will change over time, but I don't think this is a one and done. Here, just pick your option. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be a lot of trade-offs, and we darn well better be prepared to sell this to our community once we've heard every single little thing that they can think of that is an issue, because they have lived experience of this road. The people who are going to come out and talk to us about what we're doing on the road is going to be the people who are most affected by it. And I think that's really important. And I also think it's really important what the people at this table have to say. But I just want to get everything in the pot to be considered before we make a decision. So, which is why I would support the motion to refer.
Thank you very much. And I'm similar. I can tell you over the past 4 days, it was funny. The CEO was asking this morning which option I like. I'm like, B. And I started off on Friday with A, I think it was. No, I forget which one is. I had 4 changes of mind. And then in the end, I went, you know what? I want a little bit of this and a little bit of that. So it was exactly what Councillor Ward was saying. And you know, is this because it's a major arterial road, right? It's a high transit corridor. And do we need the bells and whistles? Like, we're just trying to move people through that, right? So I don't know. I don't have the answers. And like I said, and it was funny because I came here tonight and I says, I think I know what I want, because I was planning on, how am I going to do this? I'll maybe make everyone stick up their hand. Option A, we'll see who the majority is, and we'll bring it down to a smaller number. But then after I went, no, I need more people looking at this, right? I need more eyes on this right now. So that's why I'm gonna, I mean, we're not talking about a motion because no motion has been made yet, but I'll turn it, see no other comments, I'll turn it over to you if you want to make a motion. Councillor Jordison.
So the reason I was suggesting the motion was just because with what Councillor Ward suggested, I don't know how we unpack that without taking it offside. I mean, if there was a way, I would look at that, but that's why I think we need to take it off. You know, also this is like, this information, the data is based on data from 2014. Like, that was a few moons ago. So, you know, and again, on the active transportation plan being approved. So I think we should, I'd like to make a motion to defer it to the infrastructure committee. I don't know. Yeah. And what?
Yeah, both.
And okay, and the active transportation committee.
Yep. Second.
To refer it to, not defer it, sorry.
And I shall open the discussion on the motion. Seeing none, I will call the question then. All those in favor of the motion? And opposed? Councillor Ward opposes. So one of the things, I know the motion has been carried, but one of the things that we'll talk about, I think another area that I would like to have a little bit of a workshop on this before the infrastructure committee meets, because I think everyone should have a chance to express, you know, their issues and the concerns, because to make a good terms, or not a terms of reference, but you know, that good task that we want to give the infrastructure committee, we should have the questions ready, you know, look at this, look at this, look at this sort of thing, right? So that's another thing that I would like to get done before they actually sit to have this meeting. So I have to make a motion, right?
Thank you, Worship. I think I've caught the intent, and we'll schedule that.
So I'll make that motion. Second by Councillor Grove. Discussion on that one. Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Councillor Ward. Okay, so we're finished with this item. Sorry, Mr. Casey, you didn't get to present all your options, but we did read them, believe me. This is the one that everyone was taking a lot of time reading, I can tell you that. Okay, the next item, last item on under new business, North Latoria visioning process. And Nafiseh, I think you are doing the presentation or no? Who's doing? Oh, Desiree is, sorry. Desiree, sorry, yes.
No worries. Thank you, Mayor. So the next item in your agenda is just an update on the North Latoria visioning process. And this item was first introduced to council back in December of last year. And so the purpose of this meeting is just to provide a quick summary of kind of the events to date and then what's to come in the next in the next year or so. So just to summarize what has occurred to date, we've retained Urban Systems to help us prepare some engagement materials. We've met with community through 4 community sessions to hear from them on just to engage at a high level and hear from the community about what kind of vision they'd like to see for the North Latoria corridor. And we've prepared a summary report, which Urban Systems will present shortly after this. In terms of next steps, we're going to be taking what we heard from this first phase of engagement and working to develop 3 to 4 options for council to consider. One of those options could be that we take no further action on this and that we maintain the existing policies for this area. The other options that will be informed by what we heard during phase 1. And we look forward to sharing that with you sometime next year. I will now pass it over to the consultant to provide a quick summary on what we heard during the first phase.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having me here tonight. My name is Alana Rogers. I'm a community consultant with Urban Systems. And as Desiree mentioned, we've been supporting the city of Colwood with the North Latoria visioning process for this phase of engagement. So a brief project overview. The city of Colwood launched a process to develop a vision for the North Latoria corridor area. This area encompasses 13 privately owned properties on the east side of Latoria Road from Wishart to Veterans Memorial Parkway. 10 of the 13 property owners have been in discussions with city staff about developing their properties. And prior to redeveloping the area, the city is undergoing a process to establish a vision that will support staff in guiding future changes to the area's land use and density, transportation patterns, and conservation of Latoria Creek. So the engagement process involved a few initiatives. There were 2 community pop-ups that staff attended at existing city events at Music in the Park and the Beach Food and Music Festival. There were also 2 dedicated open houses for this process hosted in mid-September. As well as an online survey hosted on Let's Talk Colwood that was open for 1 month, and we received a good response rate on that. Promotion for these events included the city's social media platforms, a dedicated project webpage, 4 newspaper ads, and postcards were delivered to residents within 75 meters of the subject area. In terms of the engagement format for the in-person events, poster boards were presented to provide the community information on the project background, key aspects to consider in the vision, including land use, transportation, environment, and the public realm. A feedback board was provided for the community to share their priorities for North Latoria, and these same questions were asked for the online survey. So looking at participation by the numbers, we had 4 in-person sessions with approximately 70 attendees amongst those sessions. And the webpage received over 800 visits with 82 surveys completed in total. In terms of key themes from the engagement process, we've identified 3 key themes. The first being the importance of green space and landscaping. This includes green infrastructure, green spaces, trees, and landscaping. Active transportation was identified as important to the community, looking expressing a desire for improved walking and cycling facilities, including a network of pedestrian facilities and amenities for cyclists. And then finally, the preservation and restoration of natural and ecological features were important to the community, and that received 46% support from our survey respondents. I'm just going to quickly go through the 3 survey questions that were asked so that you can understand the key themes from the community. So for our first general question, we asked, which of the following items would you like North Latoria corridor to focus on? And participants were provided this list of options and were allowed to select as many as they liked. As identified earlier, the key areas were green infrastructure and green spaces, improved walking and cycling facilities, and the preservation of natural features and ecological areas. Improved vehicular traffic flow, and a range of commercial and retail uses also received a moderate response rate. In terms of public realm improvements, we specifically asked participants to identify what they would like to see related to public realm. Overwhelmingly, trees and landscaping received a high response rate, in addition to the pedestrian network improvements and spaces for the public to enjoy. And then finally, we left an open-ended comment box for participants to provide any additional feedback. Findings from this open-ended question included improvement of traffic flow on Latoria Road. Some provided suggestions for the amount of density for this area, many suggesting around under 6 stories. There was a desire for creating accessible spaces for the entire community, as well as a specific desire for spaces for children, such as a playground. Few participants expressed opportunities for community amenities, such as cafes and local shops. And finally, the overall sentiment of the feedback was to focus on a sustainable growth of the area. This concludes my presentation. If you have any questions for myself or staff, thank you.
Just a quick question. Could you tell me how you defined green infrastructure when you're doing the surveys?
We didn't specifically define green infrastructure on the survey. However, some of the engagement boards to help provide some project background spoke to the environment in Latoria Creek, as well as, promoting green space and trees and landscaping.
So that's what you call green infrastructure?
In the context that the public was provided for this, yes.
Okay, perfect. I just want to clearly understand. Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Other questions, Councillor Ward?
How would you, I'm looking at the number of respondents to that. Would you call that a viable survey? Would you see those numbers as kind of reflective of a community, something you base decisions on, or is that too small a representation to really kind of hang your hat on?
Yeah, I'll give sort of my professional context, and if others have examples from other Colwood engagement activities, I'd encourage that. Given that this engagement happened sort of towards the end of summer, back to school, I do think, a response rate of over 80 survey respondents is strong. We also did quite sort of target the feedback by encouraging residents within the actual area to come and provide their feedback, which I understand most residents did attend these events. So I think we got that focused engagement that we really wanted for the community members in this area. Where we really had a positive impact was at the pop-up events, where we got to just seek input from people just attending the community events. I'm not sure what a typical response rate is for the City of Colwood engagement events, but could look into that for you.
Any other questions? Oh, Councillor Day.
Thank you. I guess it may have been different at the events that you were doing it. I was not able to attend your open house, but I did talk to others who did attend, and it was described to me that the temperature was quite chilly from the residents in the area with regard to these development plans. And there seems to be a real lack of understanding, I think, in some areas in terms of that North Latoria Creek is a fish-bearing creek and what some of the seismic issues are in the area and what the potential for those lands are. I've known residents who've lived in the Latoria Valley on these properties for since the 50s. And the historic data that I've had shared with me makes me realize that it's a pretty delicate area with some serious stability concerns. So when we're talking about 6-story buildings, that worries me. And I know that, you know, as someone doing your job of, you know, engaging the community, and I do appreciate that that is a challenging thing for us to do, and really thankful that there's people like you who do it. But, you know, you're trying to look at it in a favorable, pleasant light. And there's a lot of worried people in the community about what the real impacts will be. So I just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Seeing no other discussion. Thank you very much. Thank you for the presentation. Thank you, Desiree. Okay, we'll move on to bylaws, and just as we got 10 minutes left, folks, so we'll try to get through these as quick as possible. I'll get if I can get Marcy to just read the bylaws. Bylaw number is 1977.
Thank you, Your Worship. So it's that bylaw or Colwood Land Use Bylaw number 151, 1989, amendment number 203, CD 38, 641 Latoria Road, bylaw 1977, 2023 be given third reading.
Okay, get a mover and seconder, please. Okay, Grove and Jensen. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? And Councillor Day is opposed. Next, the bylaw, please, 1999.
That Colwood sign bylaw number 60, 1988, amendment number 31, CD 38 zone, bylaw number 1999, 2003 be given third reading.
Okay, mover and seconder, Olson and Ward. Discussion. All those in favor? Any opposed? Unanimous, motion carries. Next bylaw, please.
And last but not least, that permissive tax exemption, 2024 through to 2027, bylaw number 2004 be adopted.
Okay, mover and seconder, Jordison and Jensen. Discussion. Seeing none. Oh, shoot. You got 30 seconds. Councillor Ward.
I'm just going to go on record that I will remain opposed to the permissive tax exemption to what I feel are ideologically challenging groups within Colwood. And I certainly just want to express my support to a surprising number of people who've reached out to me by email and messenger and other things to say that they appreciated somebody speaking up about something that is a touchy subject. So I thank them for letting me know I wasn't on my own on that one. There's quite a few of us who don't like to fund cults.
Thank you very much. Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Ward and move adjournment. Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Day. Second, Councillor Olson. All in favor? Motion carried. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.